of the most profound movements, and one of the first real social movement in American history was all about slavery, and that's labor. And it was about creating a different kind of democracy, different kind of way of thinking about the economy. And I think these battles aren't over. The African American portion of American wealth as a whole is 3% today. And the last time it was 3% was in 1868, 3 years after slavery. African Americans going back to before the Civil War, and the earliest African American spokespersons and writers and leaders like Frederick Douglass and others argued that the fundamental feature of the American economy was dehumanization. And they also argued that you can't have a democratic constitution and an economic system that degrades and exploits people. Many of the radical Republicans who fought for the Civil War and in the Civil War believed the same thing. I think the true intent of the 13th Amendment wasn't just to eliminate chattel slavery. It was to eliminate all forms of economic oppression and create what we would now call living wages for everybody. I think that was the true intent. But these things were overthrown. After the Civil War, there was a counter-revolution, Lincoln's assassination, the destruction of Reconstruction. We got segregation, which wasn't just about making white people feel superior, it was about a cheap labor force, which persisted. The 1963 March on Washington, where everyone sees Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Well, King wasn't head of that march. A. Philip Randolph was, the first black trade union president. The demand of the march was for jobs and freedom. Jobs came even before freedom. That sort of dream of a new kind of economy was tightly connected with thinking about voting rights and a new kind of politics. And when African Americans said we refuse to work as basically semi-slave laborers with no rights and no voting rights and no protections, and my generation said we're not going to do that work that our parents did, then employers started bringing undocumented immigrants into the country to work with no rights and no protections. And when the government said, well, what are we going to do with all these young folks like me who don't want to do this kind of semi-slave work? They didn't reform the economy. They said, let's lock them up. And we got mass incarceration. And so I think all of these things are related to our history. All of these things are part of the challenge of changing the system. And the system connects these things.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
go. What do you say, folks? Good to see you today. Friday, February 5. We're coming to you live from Washington, D.C. This is the Bill Press Show, and we're live on Free Speech TV and on our video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. How about it? Big goings-on up in New Hampshire. 2 back-to-back appearances this week between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton. The big CNN town hall on Wednesday night and the big debate on MSNBC last night. What a difference between the two. I got to tell you, the town hall was they appeared back to back, but not at the same time. And we heard them talk about their faith and their priorities and their policies. And what they might do in the White House. Last night at the debate, with the two of them standing side by side on podiums, it got pretty ugly, pretty nasty. One big debate about which one is the better progressive, and the other debate about whether or not Hillary had taken all this money from Wall Street, and what did that mean when Bernie Sanders raised that. She accused him of smearing her, and the audience broke out in a chorus of boos. Meanwhile, on the Republican side, Donald Trump still holding a double-digit lead in New Hampshire. And now Marco Rubio, not Ted Cruz, has vaulted into second place, although he is still Rubio, double digits behind Donald Trump. And Chris Christie and Jeb Bush have joined forces to take down Marco Rubio and try to prevent him from coming out in second place. Next Tuesday is the first primary of the nation in New Hampshire. It's getting pretty messy up there. Stay with us and give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about all the issues of the day. Good to have you with us.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Across from me at the kitchen table, my mother smiles over red wine that she drinks out of a measuring glass. She says she doesn't deprive herself, but I've learned to find nuance in every movement of her fork, in every crinkle in her brow as she offers me the uneaten pieces on her plate. I've realized she only eats dinner when I suggest it. I wonder what she does when I'm not there to do so. Maybe this is why my house feels bigger each time I return. It's proportional. As she shrinks, the space around her seems increasingly vast. She wanes while my father waxes. His stomach has grown round with wine, late nights, oysters, poetry, a new girlfriend who was overweight as a teenager, but my dad reports now she's crazy about fruit. It was the same with his parents. As my grandmother became frail and angular, her husband swelled to red, round cheeks, rotund stomach, and I wonder if my lineage is one of women shrinking, making space for the entrance of men into their lives, not knowing how to fill it back up once they leave. I have been taught accommodation. My brother never thinks before he speaks. I have been taught to filter. How can anyone have a relationship to food, he asks, laughing, as I eat the black bean soup I chose for its lack of carbs. I want to say we come from difference, Jonas. You have been taught to grow out. I have been taught to grow in. You learn from our father how to commit, how to produce, to roll each thought off your tongue with confidence. You used to lose your voice every other week from shouting so much. I learned to absorb. I took lessons from our mother in creating space around myself. I learned to read the knots in her forehead while the guys went out for oysters. And I never meant to replicate her, but spend enough time sitting across from someone and you pick up their habits. That's why women in my family have been shrinking for decades. We all learned it from each other, the way each generation taught the next how to knit, weaving silence in between the threads, which I can still feel as I walk through this ever-growing house. Skin itching, picking up all the habits my mother has unwittingly dropped, like bits of crumpled paper from her pocket on her countless trips, from bedroom to kitchen to bedroom again. Nights I hear her creep down to eat plain yogurt in the dark, a fugitive stealing calories to which she does not feel entitled. Deciding how many bites is too many, how how much space she deserves to occupy. Watching the struggle, I either mimic or hate her, and I don't want to do either anymore, but the burden of this house has followed me across the country. I asked 5 questions in genetics class today, and all of them started with the word sorry. I don't know the capstone requirements. I don't know the capstone requirements for the sociology major because I spent the whole meeting deciding whether or not I could have another piece of pizza. A circular obsession I never wanted, but inheritance is accidental. Still staring at me with wine-soaked lips from across the kitchen table.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hillary and Bernie duke it out in New Hampshire. Man, get a little ugly out there. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Do you know what day it is? It's Friday. How about it?
Nailed it.
It's Friday. See if we can do another. Uh-oh.
There you go.
No, it's Friday, February 5. Our favorite day around the Bill Press Show here. At least it used to be. I hope it still is. My favorite day, and I hope it's your favorite day. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Back from a little jaunt up to New York to do a little book news and book talks up in New York and book promotion up in New York and a little extra CNN time in my new role as in addition to being yours every day for 3 hours, talking about the issues of the day, providing a little help to this election period for CNN as their newest contributor. And back with all of you, and glad to be here, and thank you for joining us with lots to talk about this Friday on the heels of two back-to-back appearances. I've never seen anything like this in any campaign. We were down to 2 candidates now, and we saw them both Wednesday night in the big town hall on CNN, and last night in the big debate on MSNBC. 2 different formats and certainly 2 different results, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And we'll talk about which one you might have preferred. At any rate, great to see you. Don't forget, it is a conversation here. We have our own town hall every freaking day. So you are the audience. You are part of the show. You ask the questions by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Sending us your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Let me see if I can remember the names here. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson. Yes, indeed.
Hello, Bill.
Wow. Good
Still
morning.
here.
Hello, Bill.
Happy Friday.
Ray Rogers here. Yes, indeed. Talk to her at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian's around somewhere, but Monty Kanzler is handling the main responsibilities this morning, this evening.
It's all blurred into one thing now, hadn't it, Bill?
Yes, indeed. How are you guys doing? Everything good?
Good, man. Good. Welcome back.
We had a nice 2 days in the middle of the week.
Without me?
Not a perfect 2 days, of
Yeah,
course.
and thank you, Peter, for continuing to steer the ship down the right course here while we were gone. You know, remember that there's that commercial on television about the talk show host who's in the middle of the radio show and he really has to go? You know?
Yeah.
Well, that sort of happened down in Australia in a courtroom where one of the people in the courtroom had to make a break for the bathroom. Somehow this was reported on the news, and the poor woman who was reading the copy and reporting the story, she lost it.
He said he'd had an emergency defecation situation and needed to use her bathroom, but the judge in the case found he had a sexual motive.
An emergency defecation situation?
Oh, my God.
Anyway, carry on, Hillary.
Yeah, just as you
I'm having one myself.
Oh, no.
Investigators believe a bomb caused the explosion on a plane which has just taken off from the Somali capital of Mogadishu. The blast blew a hole in the side of the plane, and one of the 74 passengers on board was sucked out.
Oh my God.
Terrible. And I'm not laughing at that. Today could be the day. Here's my job.
She should.
I'm not laughing at this.
No, she should have turned that over to somebody else. But the emergency defecation, that poor guy. What I didn't understand is the judge said he had some kind of motive, or what? I didn't.
A sexual motive. So the case is completely
sexual motive.
Explain this for us, Jamie.
The defecation situation, which stole the headline.
Yeah. Oof.
Emergency defecation. Yeah, I never heard that phrase before. Obviously, neither had she.
No.
Yeah. Right.
It's a new one.
There we go. We've got a lot going on today. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell from Michigan will be here to give us the latest on Flint. And then we got reporters in from Washington Post and The Hill and Daily Beast and Politico. We got the waterfront covered. And your take on last night's debate between Hillary and Bernie and all the burning issues they got into. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. There's a new movie coming out called Beyond the Sun. It is a religious movie, and it's a family adventure movie, right? Sounds not exactly up my alley, but here's the thing. They have a very special star who's going to play himself in this new movie.
Jesus.
Pope Francis.
Oh, my.
Pope Francis is going to be in the movie playing himself. Now, this is the first time that a pope has ever appeared in a feature film. The filmmakers said that they are thrilled that he joined it, and they obviously there was a whole process of him checking out the script, making sure it was okay. Yeah. You know, it was good for his image and his brand. But he is taking part of it. All profits from the film will be donated to Argentinian charities, which aid at-risk children and young adults. So he's going to be. Who knows? Maybe we'll see him on the Oscars. Who knows?
R-rated?
I guarantee you it will not have an R rating. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Hateful Eight yet, but there is a scene in the movie where Kurt Russell grabs a guitar and smashes it into bits, right? Mm-hmm. The film actually went out and got a priceless 145-year-old instrument from the Martin Museum, from the Martin Guitar Company, legendary guitar company. And in the film, the guitar was supposed to be played up to a certain point.
Oh, no.
And then a stunt guitar was going to be switched in, and that was the one that he was going to smash.
No, I know where you're going.
This is terrible.
This
is terrible.
He smashed a priceless 145-year-old guitar on the movie set. And so what the movie reached out to the museum. They said, hey, we have a problem. We accidentally smashed the guitar. And Martin was very upset, but they figured that, okay, well, maybe it got dropped or some scaffolding fell on top of it. When they heard that it was because someone grabbed it and smashed it, they're actually quite upset. They're very upset about this.
Gotta sue them.
Interesting point here, by the way. There's the actress, Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's playing the guitar, knows how expensive and precious this guitar is. So her look of shock in the movie is 100% legitimate because she realizes what's happening while Kurt Russell does not. So, yeah, that's bad. So, you know, supermarkets, they tend to throw away, get rid of food that's approaching its sort of expiration date, right? Like, it's hard to sell a gallon of milk that's going to expire in 2 days. So they just sell it. Same thing with like bread and things like that. But France says that you can no longer do that. They actually passed a law by the French Senate earlier this week that says that large shops will no longer throw away food approaching its expiration date. They will now be forced to give it to charities that make free meals for people who can't afford good meals. So, you know, they'll use it immediately, obviously. That's the problem, right? It's tough to buy a big gallon jug of milk when you know it's going to be no good tomorrow. But these charities will use it immediately and give it to people who need it.
Yeah, it makes sense because those deadlines are a little...
Those are also a little, a little shaky, too.
A little loose.
Yeah.
Right, you got more time than they
that is true.
Than they give you. Yes, indeed. So, your take on, and I haven't been here to talk to you about your take on the town hall, which was, I still can't believe it, Wednesday night. because all the days blur this week. And the debate last night, 866-55-PRESS. Who do you think won the day? Who do you think scored points? Who do you think rattled the other side, Bernie or Hillary? 866-55-PRESS. I got to say, first of all, I think the town hall format is a better format than the debates. I know it's not as lively, it's not as explosive, but I thought both Bernie and Hillary did really well in that town hall. I like that. I like the idea that the audience can ask the questions. I thought the questions were really, really good from the audience. There were questions we've never heard before. You know, a rabbi asking how you can basically be in politics and still have any, and not be carried away by pride and ego. I'm paraphrasing his question, of course. One of the most striking moments I thought of the town hall was the man who has colon cancer and basically saying he's a walking, dead man.
Yeah.
And asking Hillary if she would support death with dignity. I thought her answer was not that great. I mean, she admitted nobody had ever asked her that question before, and she wanted to think about it.
It's a tough one to answer.
It's a very tough one to answer. I don't want to be too critical here. I was disappointed that she didn't say, I've thought a lot about this with my family and everything, and damn right I'd support it.
Yeah.
The way Oregon is going, and it's really working out in Oregon. But that question would never have come from some reporter who would have to ask a snarky question like John Harwood, still from Wall Street Journal, still gets the snarkiest question of all, right? Is this just a comic book campaign? I on CNN Wednesday night, I made the point that this very point, that the questions from the audience were so much more genuine than the questions you get. I said the snarky questions you get from reporters who are just trying to make a name for themselves. And I heard from a couple of reporter friends who are not happy with that comment.
Oh, gee, shock.
But too bad.
But you know what else, just quickly, is like this is also the type of issues that a lot of Americans are dealing with, and you'll never hear a question like that in a Republican debate.
No.
You would never hear that in a Republican debate.
No, not at all. And I thought both Hillary and Bernie did very well on the question of your faith. And it's not, do you go to church every Sunday? There are more profound questions about, does your faith mean anything to you, and does it play a role in your political life? Last night's debate was really lively. Right from the very beginning, you knew the question was going to come. By the way, I think last night's appearance is the first time in a week that my book has and Bernie's blurb from my book, Buyer's Remorse, with a blurb, not an endorsement, everybody calls it that, a blurb by Senator Bernie Sanders. I think, at least I didn't watch every last minute of it last night. I don't think it came up, but it's the first time in a week that hasn't come up. It came up in the town hall. Anderson Cooper asked about it Wednesday evening. Up in Manchester. But at any rate, you knew they were going to argue about this question about which one is the greater progressive. Hillary Clinton saying, me.
I was asked, am I a moderate or a progressive? And I said, I'm a progressive who likes to get things done.
And Bernie pointed out, look, this whole conversation started because she was asked out in Ohio at an event in September, are you a moderate? And she said, if people say I'm a moderate or a centrist, I plead guilty. That's what Bernie was saying. Okay, if you're a moderate, that's fine. But if you're a moderate, you're not a progressive, unless you're a progressive moderate or whatever. So he said, and it got a little, definitional debate, right? So, like, who cares? But if you look at it in that argument, I think you got to say, you tell me, 866-55-PRESS, you don't, I would never argue with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar about whether I'm a better basketball player than he is, right? I would not argue with Bernie Sanders about whether I'm a better progressive than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Now, nobody's perfect. Bernie has to explain how he can be a progressive and vote against the Brady bill, I think. That's his Achilles heel on that issue. But otherwise, Bernie is there, right? Hillary's got to explain why she calls herself a progressive, and yet she is against single payer. She is for the Keystone Pipeline, was, for TPP, or at least was, right? She voted for the Iraq War. She's against the restoration of Glass-Steagall. There's a whole list. She's for the death penalty. That came up last night. It's a whole list of positions where she has taken an anti-progressive position, and yet she insists on calling herself a progressive. And remember, Hillary and Bill Clinton were sort of one of the founders of the DLC in the Democratic Party, which was all about bringing the Democratic Party back to the center. So I would say Hillary's a little center-left, but she's certainly not as far left. She's not a progressive in the sense, as progressive, put it that way, as Bernie Sanders is. She's done a lot of good progressive things, but she's just on that scale. Listen, she's certainly better than any of the Republicans have to offer, and better than a lot of the Democrats, right? But don't try to say she's more progressive than I don't think you can than Bernie Sanders. So that was one big thing they argued about last night. The other was the on health care. This has continued to be a big debate issue item, because Bernie Sanders, of course, is all for single payer. That's the way we should have gone, he says. And instead we have Obamacare, which is better than we had before. We're better off than we were before. But as Bernie keeps pointing out, it's not perfect when there are still 30 million people who don't have health insurance, when the pharmaceutical companies can still raise the price of drugs unlimited, basically, and where the insurance companies are laughing all the way to the bank because we have to buy private insurance under Obamacare. That's not single payer. And we'll get into that with Hillary Clinton, who's always saying, well, I don't have to start from scratch. At any rate, let's take a quick break. Time for your calls. What do you think? You heard the debate last night. We didn't even get into the real nitty-gritty of the debate, which is, how dare you talk about my Wall Street speaking fees and all the contributions I've had from the banks and the financial institutions. Last night's debate, who came out ahead? 866-55-PRESS.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
Today, in this country, we are having a conversation about police violence, the killing of black men, and what all that means. It is sad that this is happening and that every day there's a new incident to cause us to keep thinking about it and talking about it. But it is extraordinary that the American people are having to deal with this every day, whether you're watching CNN or MSNBC, Fox, or ABC News. All the news channels are talking about police violence and what does that mean against black people. Many people probably look at that, certainly have looked at it in the past, and they have said that these poor black men are doing bad things, and that's why they are ending up in confrontations with police, without any understanding of their lives of these poor black young men. Part of what has been going on for decades is that poor black people live in communities that suffer from hyper surveillance of the police. Their police are more likely to be in their communities. The police are more likely to arrest them. The police are more likely to stop them even if they're not doing anything. And that is what is so hard for the American people to believe, that you would get stopped and searched and arrested by the police and not doing anything. But this is starting to come out as people are telling the stories over and over again. But this has been the condition, this hyper surveillance by police, making it more likely for people to get a record, to be known by the police, and then once they get in the system, it is almost impossible to get out because of the whole system of being on parole and missing an appointment or fraternizing with a person who has a criminal record, getting you right back in the jail, and then going back again and again and again. This is coming to be seen by the American people in a way that it has never been seen before. But why are people in these communities in the first place? That's getting peeled away. People are there because of housing discrimination. They are there because this is the only place where affordable housing can be found. They are there because that's where their families live, and people are drawn to being in communities where they are comfortable. The combination keeps people in these low-income communities where they are an easy target for hyper-surveillance and then everything that comes from it. And so as we think about these issues, we have to understand that while you as an individual in this society, as a white individual, you may not carry personal racism, but that does not keep the system from operating in a racist way.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 27 minutes after the hour. Last night's debate, another issue that came up again, is what we're going to do about health care. Bernie says, let's keep what we've got. I helped write it, but let's face it, Obamacare, it doesn't go far enough, and let's transition to a single-payer system. Hillary Clinton says that would be a disaster.
I don't want us to start over again. I think that would be a great mistake to once again plunge our country into a contentious debate about whether we should have and what kind of system we should have for health care.
I don't buy that argument at all. I don't know about you. Again, 866-55-PRESS. First of all, she's not telling the truth about Obamacare. She says we have 90% coverage. No, we don't. We have 30 million Americans who are still without health insurance in this country. And again, prescription drugs out of control, private insurance companies making untold profits off of us because of Obamacare. And there is a better system. It's called single payer. At least we should have a public plan option. And it's not, and accusing Bernie Sanders of saying, which she did again last night, Bernie corrected her, of wanting to throw away Obamacare, throw away Medicare, throw away Social Security, or Medicare, I'm sorry, and Medicare and Medicaid, and replace it immediately with single payer is not something that Bernie has said. So that debate is going to continue. Voters of New Hampshire are going to decide. We can decide it right now. And then when we come back, is it unfair to talk about Hillary's Wall Street money?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Across from me at the kitchen table, my mother smiles over red wine that she drinks out of a measuring glass. She says she doesn't deprive herself, but I've learned to find nuance in every movement of her fork, in every crinkle in her brow as she offers me the uneaten pieces on her plate. I've realized she only eats dinner when I suggest it. I wonder what she does when I'm not there to do so. Maybe this is why my house feels bigger each time I return. It's proportional. As she shrinks, the space around her seems increasingly vast. She wanes while my father waxes, His stomach has grown round with wine, late nights, oysters, poetry, a new girlfriend who was overweight as a teenager, but my dad reports now she's crazy about fruit. It was the same with his parents. As my grandmother became frail and angular, her husband swelled to red, round cheeks, rotund stomach, and I wonder if my lineage is one of women shrinking, making space for the entrance of men into their lives, not knowing how to fill it back up once they leave. I have been taught accommodation. My brother never thinks before he speaks. I have been taught to filter. How can anyone have a relationship to food, he asks, laughing, as I eat the black bean soup I chose for its lack of carbs. I want to say we come from difference, Jonas. You have been taught to grow out. I have been taught to grow in. You learn from our father how to commit, how to produce, to roll each thought off your tongue with confidence. You used to lose your voice every other week from shouting so much. I learned to absorb. I took lessons from our mother in creating space around myself. I learned to read the knots in her forehead while the guys went out for oysters. And I never meant to replicate her, but spend enough time sitting across from someone and you pick up their habits. That's why women in my family have been shrinking for decades. We all learned it from each other, the way each generation taught the next how to knit, weaving silence in between the threads, which I can still feel as I walk through this ever-growing house. Skin itching, picking up all the habits my mother has unwittingly dropped, like bits of crumpled paper from her pocket on her countless trips, from bedroom to kitchen to bedroom again. Nights I hear her creep down to eat plain yogurt in the dark, a fugitive stealing calories to which she does not feel entitled. Deciding how many bites is too many, how much space she deserves to occupy. Watching the struggle, I either mimic or hate her, and I don't want to do either anymore, but the burden of this house has followed me across the country. I asked 5 questions in genetics class today, and all of them started with the word sorry. I don't know the capstone requirements. I don't know the capstone requirements for the sociology major because I spent the whole meeting deciding whether or not I could have another piece of pizza. A circular obsession I never wanted, but inheritance is accidental. Still staring at me with wine-soaked lips from across the kitchen table.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Help keep all the presidential candidates straight with your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
You bet it is. 33 minutes after the hour here on a big Friday, February 5, The Bill Press Show. It's an unusual day because there's no joint appearance between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton today. They've got the weekend leading up to the first primary in the nation on Tuesday in New Hampshire. We're covering it, talking about it, taking your calls about it here on the Bill Press Show this Friday, where we're brought to you today by the Laborers International Union of North America, the good men and women of the Laborers Union under President Terry O'Sullivan. They are building a better America. That's their website, too, LIUNA, L-I-U-N-A, LIUNAbuildsamerica.org. Maybe the most contentious part of the debate last night was when Bernie Sanders raised again, in response to a question, the fact that Hillary Clinton had taken $675,000 in speaking fees from Goldman Sachs alone in that last year before, or the time before, between Secretary of State and running for president. And as the Washington Post reported yesterday, last year, she had received $21.4 million in campaign contributions from big banks and from hedge funds on Wall Street. Is this a legitimate issue? Hillary basically says, how dare you raise that? You're smearing me. And you can hear the audience who's not happy with that.
I think it's time to end the very artful smear that you and your campaign have been carrying out in recent weeks. And let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about the issues that divide us.
You can hear Bernie is trying to respond. She just keeps talking, just talks over him, and the audience booing. Artful smear. I got to say, it is not an artful smear to recognize if you take that campaign money and you report it, it's a legitimate issue. It is not a smear to raise that issue. And I think that's always a problem with the Clintons. They can't take criticism. And instead, they'll turn it against you and say, how dare you criticize us? I remember in 2008, Bill Clinton accused Barack Obama of playing the race card because in the South Carolina primary, he was, I forget what the issue was, but legitimately pointing out that Hillary was wrong on some issue. And so we saw a little taste of that again last night. Whatever you think about the propriety of taking that kind of money or what that means, it ain't a smear to point out that she did. She's got it. Fess up to it. Own up to it. On the phones, Joey calling from Chicago. Joey, what's up?
Did you take a wrong turn this morning, Bill? It's Friday, Bill. My goodness.
I couldn't sleep.
I've been Hillary for a long time, and I'm not quite sure I could vote for her. I mean, I'm a Democrat, but, you know, when you get that much money, they expect something for that, Bill. I don't care what she says. When you give that much money, you expect something from it. And if I want to vote for a Republican light or a Republican, I'm going to vote for a Republican and not the Republican light. So, you know, I'm Bernie Sanders all the way, and she's got to be a little better for me to go vote for her. I feel terrible about that, but that's the way I feel, Bill.
Well, I hear you. I hear you, Joey. I'm not there. I'd vote for Hillary any day over any one of those clowns on the Republican side. I supported Hillary over Barack Obama in 2008, as you all know. But I just don't like this playing the victim, which he always does. I mean, come on, own up to it. And by the way, you're right. If you take that kind of, I can tell you, I've been in politics a long time. I ran for public office, right? There's no way, I don't care who you are, how pure you are. If somebody's giving you, a lot of money, and somebody has raised a lot of money for you, you are damn right. You're going to take their calls and you're going to listen to them, and that's what it's all about. When Hillary said last night, name one thing, right? Name one way or one thing they got from me in response for all of that money. You know, if I were Bernie Sanders, I would have said one word: access. That's all. Access. They have access that you don't have, that I don't have, that 99.99999% of Americans don't have and will never have. And as Bernie says, and if you notice, he doesn't attack Hillary so much as he attacks the system. Because he kept coming back last night, talking about how the system is so corrupt because of the fact we can't do anything about climate change because of all the money the Koch brothers throw in, because we can't do anything about prescription drug prices because of all the money the pharmaceutical companies come in. So Bernie kept talking about the system. The system is corrupt. Up in Bergen County, New Jersey. Hello, John.
How you doing, Bill?
All right. I'm good. Thanks. What's up?
Bill, the problem I have with my major problem with Bernie Sanders is I feel that if he said he helped draft and wrote the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, and now that he's running for president, he want to use that as a whipping stick against Mrs. Clinton. When we had the healthcare system was broken, this is the best at this point that we have. And I feel, okay, you want the single payer system, but we got to remember what the country was put through in 2010 just to get us through. And I think that they can use that again. And if they say he gets the nomination, they can use that again to put the country through the same emotional roller coaster, and the Democrats will lose. I think him using healthcare system, the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act as a whipping stick is a bad move on his part.
Well, let me just suggest, John, I don't think you're listening to what Bernie's saying. First of all, Bernie's not the one who's using this as a whipping stick against her. She is using the fact that he is pro-single payer as a whipping stick against him and saying because he is single payer, he wants to destroy Obamacare, destroy Medicare, I've heard her say this, destroy Medicaid, and start all over from scratch. And Bernie again pointed out last night, that's not what he's saying at all. He says, yes, I helped write it. This is all we could get through at the time. It's a lot better than where we were. But you got to admit, there are some still very serious shortcomings with Obamacare. And if every other country in the world practically, all of our allies in Europe, for example, and Canada, have a system of universal health care where every single person is covered from birth as a matter of right. What do you mean we can't do that here in the United States? I mean, Bernie said that last night.
We're the greatest country in the world.
Yeah. I mean, what do you mean?
We profess that.
When people say, well, it could never happen here. The only reason it could never happen here is because, as Bernie points out, the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies throw too much money into the political system. So, again, Bernie didn't go out and attack. He's not running as attacking Obamacare. She is running, attacking him because he says, I'm a progressive, I'm for single-payer insurance. Guess what? I'm for single-payer. I've been for single-payer all my life. Margie, and I've benefited from it, by the way, a couple of times. I mentioned that before when I was in Europe. Look at the system. As Bernie says, that everybody has health care. You take France, Germany, England, right down the line. Everyone has health care, and they spend far, far, far less money than we do on health care. Margie, calling from up in Ithaca, New York. Hey, Margie.
Hey, good morning.
What do you think?
Well, I thought, in response to his artful smearing, I thought she artfully smeared his single payer. It's politics. That's the way it rolls. And it was just a really great debate last night.
It was. It really was.
Exciting. And Rachel Maddow, wow, she's awesome. And who was that other guy?
Chuck Todd.
That other guy.
Host of Meet the Press, right? Of course, yeah. But no, I thought, you know what? The smartest thing, I think, Margie, I don't know whether you agree, that I thought Rachel and Chuck Todd did last night is they stayed out of the way.
Oh, God, that was so great. Yep.
They let the candidates just go at it back and forth.
There is sort of, honestly, for me anyway, a fatigue in the Republican debates of these moderators trying to exert their dominance. Well, what about the rules of the debate? The rules say this, and the rules say that, and no. Yeah. It's just like,
yeah.
Come on.
And also that with just the two candidates, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have to make sure that everybody had an equal amount of speech. I mean, I think Hillary Clinton certainly had more time last night than Bernie, but Bernie could have had more time if he'd been more aggressive, maybe. But with you get 8 candidates on stage, you got to be sure that everybody gets a chance to have their little say, right? And you've got to make sure everybody gets a question to them, right? So they don't feel. And last night was just okay. You guys, duke it out. We'll come back when we have to take a commercial break, or when we think you've run out of gas on that issue, and we'll just throw another little
throw the log on the fire.
Right. Beverly, with a comment here from St. David, Illinois. Hey, Beverly.
Hi, Bill. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
A little angry at you, but who cares?
You're always angry at me, Beverly.
Yo.
Go ahead.
Well, first of all, she was brilliant last night. She was so good at foreign policy. And if she is so into what the bankers want to do, why is it that the progressive Paul Krugman said that her Wall Street plan was better than Bernie's? And also, on your lovely book...
Well, wait, let's do one
at a time. Come on.
Let's do one thing at a time.
The fire is too hot.
We'll get to the book. We'll get to the book in just a second. Look, I don't get me wrong. I like Hillary. I supported her over Barack Obama, right? I just like Bernie, and I think it's great. She's a better candidate because Bernie is out there. And she's got to answer for why she's taken all that money from Wall Street. Don't tell me they're not going to. They'd rather see Hillary than Bernie in there. He would break up the banks, and she said again last night, I wouldn't do that. So that's a big difference, Beverly. And Paul Krugman's wrong. Now, what about the book?
Okay.
How many have you ordered yet, Beverly?
No, because I'm one of the poor and I can't afford it. This is what I think. Buyer's remorse. I don't know of any Democrat who doesn't like President Obama, okay? Number two, what I think is progressives owe President Obama an apology. They didn't get out and vote in 2010 and got him a Congress that was Democrat or a Senate that was Democrat. 2014, they did the same thing. So they ought to be looking at themselves going, well, geez, he's one man. We could have got up and behind him. They have tepidly supported him through his entire presidency. We could have had a Senate that was a Democrat instead of voting for Jody Ernst, the pig castrator.
All right, Beverly, I would suggest in response to that maybe if President Obama had done a little more to help the Democratic Party and gotten out there, and I've heard this from senators and I've heard this from members of Congress who wanted him to get out there and really work his butt off to make sure that they kept control of the House and the Senate, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Think about it that way, too. Yeah, what did he... You're right. A lot of people didn't turn out to vote, and shame on them. But what did he do to really rally the forces for House members and Senate members? Not a hell of a lot. All right, Beverly, we love you. We'll be back. David Farenthold from the Washington Post up in New Hampshire with his take on last night's debate.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
A letter to the girl I used to be. Dear Emily, every time I watch baseball, a voice I no longer recognize whispers, Ethan, do you remember? When you were going to be the first girl to play in the Major League Seattle Mariners rally cap. But to be honest, Emily, I don't. Dad told me that like it was someone else's bedtime story. But I do know you had that drive. Didn't let anyone tell you to wear shorts above your knees. Didn't care if boys thought your hair fell on your shoulders just right, but with girls, sleepovers meant the space between your shoulder and hers was a 6-inch fatal territory. The year you turned 11 was the first time you said out loud that you didn't want to live anymore. In therapy, you said you wouldn't make it to 21. On my 21st birthday, I thought about you. You were right. At 19, you started to fade. I tried to cross you out like a line in my memoir I wished I could erase completely. And maybe I'm misunderstanding the definition of death, but even though parts of you still exist, you are not here. Most of my friends have never heard your name until now. I've been trying to write this letter for 6 months. I still can't decide if it should be an apology or not. But now you will never hear Emily Smith announced at a college graduation. Get married. Give birth. When the prescribed testosterone started taking effect, my body stopped producing the potential for new life every month. I thought about your children, how I wanted them too. I let a doctor remove your breasts so that I could stand up straighter. Now, even if I somehow had those children, I wouldn't be able to nourish them. My body is obsolete, scarred cosmetic, but never C-section. I was 4 days late. They will never be grandparents. I was 1 week late. They will never hold their lover's sleeping figure. I was 11 days late. They will never breathe in a sunset and a sunrise in the same night. I was 2 weeks late. They will never learn to jump rope. I was 3 weeks late. They will never shout, "Watch, Mommy, watch me on the slide." I was 2 months late. A piece of us will never wrap their arms around our leg for comfort, but just to keep them from falling down. And I am sorry that this process is so slow, and all you can do is wonder if you ever had a place. You did. You still do. Don't forget that. Yours, Ethan. P.S. I never hated you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 10 minutes before the top of the hour, Betsy Woodruff from the Daily Beast here in studio with us at the top of the next hour. Still trying to analyze last night's big debate on MSNBC, right on the heels of the town hall on CNN the night before. What a difference between the two formats and between the way the candidates conducted themselves in those two events. David Farrenhold from the Washington Post, covering 2016 for the Post on the ground in New Hampshire, joins us on our newsline. Hello, David. Pretty exciting night last night, huh?
It was, actually. I've covered a lot of these debates, and this was definitely the most interesting so far.
It's nice to get down to two candidates, right? You can get something done.
Right, and also I think Hillary Clinton's persona in these debates has changed. I mean, just like it did in 2008 when she started to lose to Obama, it's made losing, or the threat of losing, has made her more aggressive, and I think more determined to sort of draw clear lines between her and Bernie Sanders.
Right. How did you think, what were the key issues that you felt and sort of who came out ahead on them? Let's start with healthcare.
On healthcare, I thought Clinton made a really strong point of view. And as somebody who's covered Congress, I think probably she's being realistic here, that if we tried to get Sanders' positions passed, I mean, regardless of whether you agree with them or not, that would open up a massive healthcare debate that would be really hard to pull out of Congress in the way that Sanders wants.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Sanders repeated what he said before about the justice of this idea and the idea that a bunch of other European countries have single-payer health care systems. But I thought Clinton made a strong point about the feasibility of it, both in terms of the logistics, the cost, if you actually got it implemented, and in terms of the implementation in Congress itself.
And which one is the greater progressive or the better progressive?
I've covered Republicans for a long time, and the idea that they would argue over who's a pure or conservative,
right.
that's a very familiar idea, and that they would say, you're the establishment, I'm the purist.
Yeah.
Democrats have never done that, at least in my brief time covering them.
No.
And so to spend all this time arguing about a label, I think, is really interesting. Clinton obviously says she's the progressive who gets things done. I'm not sure that really matters that much to a general election voter. I think, the idea of who's progressive or not, I think that's not something that most people carry around in their heads as a litmus test. But it's fascinating to see these two argue about it.
And I think that there are a lot of Republicans. I made this point on Morning Joe yesterday on MSNBC, and Joe Scarborough said, I just want you to know, Bill, I really love the fact that the Democrats are arguing about which is who's the bigger lefty, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, you saw a few years ago, the Republicans sort of made the word liberal anathema.
Yeah.
Nobody would stand up and say, I'm the bigger liberal.
Right.
But it's the same idea, basically, that they're saying, I'm the bigger progressive.
All right, now, the big explosive issue last night was, is it a smear to raise the question about Hillary's campaign contributions from the financial industry?
I was surprised that she said it that way because, of course, it's not a smear. If you have concerns about somebody acting on behalf of an industry they took donations from, it's a fair question to ask. A lot of people are going to ask the same question.
I don't know whether it was your story, but the Washington Post reported yesterday $21.4 million, right, through December from hedge funds and big banks.
So I thought that you're right. I thought that was a little unusual to call that a smear, to sort of you say to Sanders, say it to my face. Mm-hmm. Because it's obviously something that it's not an out of bounds accusation, and it's certainly not something that it's something that she has sort of put herself in the position to be asked by.
Yeah, a little too defensive about that, I thought, and the audience felt that too. I mean, we're throwing out the word smear. I mean,
that was the one woman when the audience seemed to boo either candidate.
Exactly. Yeah, I wish we had more time, David, but I appreciate so much. We got to run along. You're joining us this morning. Have fun up there. All right.
Thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you again soon, David Farrenhold. He covers 2016 for the Washington Post. Damn good reporter. Betsy Woodruff coming up next.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
So you're drowning in student debt, and it looks like there's no way out. Have you considered bankruptcy? Of course not. It's a dirty word, and everything you've heard says students can't file anyway. It didn't start that way. Bankruptcy laws were enacted in the 19th century to give people a fresh start. But not all debt is created equal. Take this, for example. We have you, your buddy Carlos, and your grandma Lucy. Carlos got laid off. His credit card debt was too much to handle, so he filed for bankruptcy. will totally screw his credit, but at least he can start fresh, and after 10 years, his credit report should be fine. Grandma Lucy's home lost half its value. Now her mortgage isn't worth paying back. She says F it and decides to file for bankruptcy too. Then there's you. You didn't land that dream job, you're struggling to make ends meet, but the interest just keeps piling up. With a broken heart, you've written off the possibility of buying a home, having kids, and getting married because, hello, who wants to deal with your crazy baggage? But in reality, you want those things, and your education was supposed to get you there. Now you need a fresh start, just what bankruptcy was intended for. You try to file, like Carlos and Grandma Lucy, and that's when you realize it's not as easy for you as it was for them. In the 70s, Congress worried that students were using bankruptcy to abuse loan programs. That wasn't quite true. Still, over the years, Congress gradually stripped student debtors of their options. The Bankruptcy Reform Act of 1978 was even called discriminatory toward students by the chairman of the subcommittee. Student debt was singled out and lumped with criminal debts. Today, if student debtors try filing for bankruptcy anyway, they'll need to prove their debt imposes an undue hardship. But who's to say what qualifies as an undue hardship? Even some judges have said they don't get it. This lack of clarity in the law could work in your favor. A Harvard researcher discovered in 2012 that few students actually try to discharge their loans through bankruptcy. Of the students who filed for bankruptcy to settle other debts, only 0.1% try the same tactic on their school debt. The craziest part? Just under half of them got their debts fully or partially discharged. In other words, you can file for bankruptcy on your student loans. Depending on your situation, it might just be a matter of trying. At least there's that.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
This is the Bill Press Show.
With Betsy Woodruff from Daily Beast, top of the next hour.
Nice little piece of property in Washington, D.C. It's a 16-bedroom, 35-bathroom house, 55,000 square feet on 18 acres of property in downtown D.C. Has a bowling alley, a private dentist's office, plenty of home office space, and lots of history. We're talking about the White House. And Zillow took a look at what it would. It's not up for sale, but Zillow took a look at what it would cost to buy the White House. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue would cost you $3.25 million.
No.
That's what it would cost.
No.
That's what it would cost.
Million?
$3.25 million.
No.
Assuming, I mean, if you take away the fact that it's a White House, right? Like, but for that piece of property.
Yeah, there are houses on the hill that are $3.5 million.
You decide.
Trillion. You meant to say trillion. Seriously. All right. Back with Betsy Woodruff.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right, guys, I want to take the last part of the day to change our focus and talk a little bit about water. There's rivers, there's lakes, there's huge oceans. You get thirsty, you just go and you get some water, right? We rely on rain for our water. We even rely on snow. But what if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. I want you to tell your parents, your friends, your neighbors, how important it is to save water. It's up to you guys to save the planet. All right? What if it doesn't rain? What if it doesn't snow? We have to get the word out about water conservation. It's up to you guys to save the planet. Hi, I'm Mark LaFleur, and I produced the short film you just watched called Aquaforce. California is experiencing one of the worst droughts it's ever had, and now, more than ever, it's important for everyone to do their part to help conserve water. The reason I made this film is because I wanted to make something fun and informative that would get people talking about the California drought. Obviously, this is an important issue because we have a limited amount of clean drinking water. I think it was very important to let people know, especially young people, that this is an important resource, maybe our most important resource, and it's something that we can't take for granted and we certainly can't waste. I really wanted this to be something that children would respond to. The kind of thing that any kid anywhere in the world, no matter what language they speak, could understand the story and be entertained by it and leave it knowing that this is something important, that if they didn't already know about this, that it's now going to be a part of the way that they think about water, the way that they live life, and that it's something that they'll share with their friends. The fact that they watch this video once or twice and they immediately understand that water is important, that's it. That was the whole point of this thing, to get it into the conversation, to make it something that kids are thinking about, talking about, that they're aware of, and that they know is important. This project was self-funded, so we relied on the support of our community to make it happen. It was pretty amazing to just have our neighbors, our friends, and our coworkers come together and volunteer their time and their homes and their kids to make this thing happen. Thanks for checking out the video. Keep the Aquaforce going, and thanks for watching Free Speech TV.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Back to back. Town Hall Wednesday night. The big debate last night. Getting a little tense up there in New Hampshire between Bernie and Hillary. Hello, everybody. What do you say? It is a Friday. Friday, February 5. So good to see you today. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington. And we are here with you all across this great land of ours, on the radio and on television, right there with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Thanks for joining us this morning. And right there with you on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Hello, hello, hello. And again, welcome to the program. I don't know, a week or so ago, one of those days when I happened not to be here, you probably heard and saw Betsy Woodruff filling in as a guest host, and she's back today on the other side of the table here from Daily Beast, just back from the caucuses in Iowa. Hi, Betsy. Nice to see you.
Hey, nice to see you.
Was it cold out there, by the way?
It's not too bad. It was like
No?
40 degrees. My rule is if it's above 35 degrees or below 90 degrees, I don't complain about the weather. If it's not in that spectrum, I'll lose my mind and be really, really angry and upset. But if it's in that window...
We had a little snow this morning.
Yeah, it's a little bit flurry.
Yeah, there's snow driving in this morning, yeah.
That was not snow.
Flurries. I should clarify. I mean, it was flurries.
Don't say that in front of the Mainer.
Yeah, no, I know. I immediately, as soon as I said that, I knew I'd messed up.
All right. Yeah.
Flurries.
Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson here are leading our team today.
Hello, Bill.
Boys, hello. Ray Rogers on the phones, ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bowling in briefly. He's out. Monty Kanzler is our videographer for the day, keeping us looking good on Free Speech and on TawkrTV. Well, you know, Rick Santorum dropped out after Iowa. We knew it was going to happen. And he immediately turned around and endorsed Marco Rubio. He appeared morning before last on Morning Joe and was asked a legitimate question, I think, by Joe Scarborough. Name one thing that Marco Rubio has accomplished in 4 years in the Senate. And Rick Santorum was unable to name anything. So Chris Christie, very cleverly, I think, took that little interview and has turned it into the latest attack ad in New Hampshire against Marco Rubio. Here's what it sounds like.
Name one thing that he's passed. The Republicans have been a majority for 1 year and 1 month, of which, as you know, he was running for president primarily. Well, just one that Marco achieved, maybe a bill that he wrote.
Jeb Bush ran Florida. Donald Trump built a company. Marco Rubio finished the sentence.
You can't point to him and say, well, nothing got done, and therefore he has no accomplishments. So this is a bogus argument. All I'm asking is a simple question. List one accomplishment that Marco Rubio has achieved in 4 years in the United States Senate. The bottom line is there isn't a whole lot of accomplishments, Joe, and I just don't think it's a fair question.
I'm Chris Christie, and I approve this message.
The best part is I don't. The best part is when he's like, I don't think it's a fair question. Like, are you kidding? What would be a fair question?
Right.
What color is Marco Rubio's hair? Is Marco Rubio a nice person? Like, is that the only thing you're allowed to ask?
Or how high are his boots?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, no, that is a fair question.
Of course it is.
Yeah, great surrogate. Don't go. Yeah, Rick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Poor
no.
guy.
Poor guy. No,
It's certainly not lost on me that Chris Christie attack ad was a clip pulled from Morning Joe.
By the way,
best buds.
What is it? Maybe 3 times a week he's been on Morning Joe for the last,
He gets more FaceTime on that show than anybody else.
Yeah, but to his credit, they obviously put him on because he's a colorful guest. He's a good guest.
And that's a good ad.
And it's a great ad.
Also, like, how easy is it to make that ad? It's like you give an intern a TV Eyes account and you make
Christie's,
that ad.
You never see Christie in the ad.
No.
He's not in the ad at all, except for that little nugget at the end where he says...
It was like, neener, there's Christie.
Yeah.
Yeah, take that, dork.
No, take that, Bubble Boy.
Bubble Boy.
That's a nickname that he's got for it. No, very clever. But the point I was going to make is that Chris Christie also very wisely, right, saw he doesn't have much of a campaign, but he can get free media if he just drives across the bridge that nobody else can drive across at that time of the morning, and shows up in the studio, and they'll put him on, which he has done. He's done very wisely. At any rate, so we'll get into all of it, Iowa and New Hampshire, with Betsy here, and then reporters coming in from The Hill and Politico a little bit later, plus Congresswoman Debbie Dingell to bring us up to date on Flint, Michigan. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. All right, so there's a chef in Los Angeles. His name is Neil Fraser. He is a James Beard Award winner. He is currently the chef owner of Los Angeles' 3-star restaurant, Redbird. And he invited a group of food writers and sort of industry folks to his restaurant for a very special menu. And he decorated the table with these foraged items. It looked like it was going to be a very special menu. Turns out he played a trick on his diners. He cooked an entire meal using only ingredients from McDonald's. From McDonald's. He used only ingredients that you could get at a McDonald's to cook
so not like frozen patties, but actually purchasing...
No, frozen patties. So he took the ground beef that you get at McDonald's. That you would get at McDonald's. He made a little meatball situation with it. He made a bread salad using the buns, like a panzanella type bread salad using the buns. Right? I would totally eat this. And everybody just gushed over it, fawned over how wonderful it was. And at the end, he announced that he had duped all of the diners and said, everything you ate here was eaten from...
I can see you could take the ingredients and make something better of it.
Bill would have been able to sniff it out.
Isn't there a Shakespeare play where she feeds someone his son cooked into a meat pie or something?
Oh, I can't read it right.
Okay, well...
I don't know anything about it. Men of America are in horrible pain, going to be in horrible pain reading this story. But the San Antonio Spurs, their star, Manu Ginobili, is out for a month with an unspecified testicle injury. He took a very hard shot into the groin in the middle of a game the other night, and it's so bad that he's actually out for a month. This is sort of unprecedented. These injuries happen from time to time, right? And usually they're pretty quick to recover from, but it's such an awful, gruesome, grisly injury. He's out for a month.
Did he get kicked?
He caught a hard knee under the groin.
Every man's worst fear.
Every man's worst fear, yeah. So you can't really play basketball wearing a cup, but yeah, I know it's a tough story to report. And so you hear about this? You hear about this Super Bowl? You hear about the Super Bowl thing? It's happening this weekend. Super Bowl 50, yeah.
This big football
game.
This
football thing from the sports desk. So right here in Washington, D.C., all the lawmakers always get in on the action, right? There are too many lawmakers to go down here, but The Hill has compiled a list of a bunch of different lawmakers who have made wagers with gifts and foods and products from their home state of North Carolina, where the Carolina Panthers, who are playing in the Super Bowl, are going to be from, and then the Denver Broncos and lawmakers from the Denver, Colorado area. So the North Carolina politicians are wagering things like Bojangles, chicken and biscuits. We've seen that in a couple of different wagers. That's the biggest thing.
Oh, hell yeah.
Lame wager.
I love Bojangles.
But Bojangles is amazing.
Bojangles is the greatest. And people, this is the thing from North Carolina, right? So a lot of people are putting that on the line.
Are the Colorado guys wagering pot?
That would be a great one.
What they should do.
What a great one to do. But no, there's no pot. A lot of people are putting Colorado craft beer. There's a lot of great craft beer from Colorado. That's one of the things that are up there. There are some sweets from Denver that are very big. Also, some other ones from North Carolina. Cheerwine soda is a big thing, North Carolina.
Well, we have Niall Standish from The Hill coming in a little bit later.
Yeah.
Niall can run down the list for us.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. So you were out there, and I were actually at a caucus. I've been to caucuses in previous years. Tell us about the one you went to.
It was my first time going to a caucus. So I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And I wanted to go to a college campus that wasn't too far from Des Moines. So just kind of randomly picked this caucus site in Ames. And the way I found it was by putting in the address of one of the dorms there. When I got there, I was delighted because it turned out there were actually 5 different precincts in this one student union.
Right.
So I could go back and forth and look at all the different precincts and how they were working. But this place was totally slammed. It was like the entire building was just jam-packed with people, a line down the front, literally all the way out to the street. And 2 of the precincts were totally run by college students because, of course, the precincts have to be managed by people who live in them, and the precincts are just a couple dorms per precinct.
Oh, yeah.
And these students clearly had no idea what they were doing. I mean, some of these kids were 14 the last time there was a caucus. But what really struck me was that, well, first off, in one of them, there was obviously a huge line. It was 3 people deep going all the way around this building, and they ran out of voter registration forms. One of the girls leading the caucus stood up and said, "Hey, I need everybody to sit tight. There are so many new voters registering that we don't have enough paper, so we have to print out more of these forms." And here's what's wild. In that particular precinct, I've watched it through the course of the night. In that precinct, Hillary Clinton didn't get enough votes to be assigned any delegate equivalent.
Oh my God.
She wasn't even viable. It was about.
She was like the Rick Santorum,
totally,
or the Martin O'Malley.
She literally did as well as Martin O'Malley did in terms of delegate count.
Whoa.
It was about 290 students at least caucusing for Bernie, and maybe less than 20 for Hillary. And I went to the Hillary room. They had to divide them up in rooms because the precinct was so big. I went to the Hillary room when they announced this, and it was just the saddest thing. It's these 24 bummed out college students kind of with their shoulders hunched up well, we hear she's doing better in other parts of the state. And meanwhile, the Bernie kids are all jumping up and down and feel the burn and having a great time. It was, it's the kind of thing where you hear about how much millennials and kids these days love Bernie Sanders, but until you see something like that happen, it doesn't really hit you.
Well, 2 things about that. Number one is, what you're saying, they're running out of forms, all those kinds of things. There are some serious questions and a shadow kind of looming over the Iowa caucuses, particularly on the Democratic side. The Des Moines Register yesterday had a blistering editorial attacking the state Democratic Party for refusing to do a recount or to take a second look at what they reported. And I mean, again, this is the Des Moines Register, which endorsed Hillary Clinton. So they're not a Bernie Sanders rag. But they pointed out there are some 90 precincts. They had reporters in a lot of these precincts. And they reported a lot of irregularities and bad counts or questions about it. And they also pointed out that 0.2%, when it's that close, in many states, that would be an automatic recount.
Right, yeah.
You wouldn't have to ask for it. Automatic recount. And the Iowa Democratic Party is now saying, no, we did it perfectly. We're not going to go back and look at all of our numbers. And so I think they could be in trouble on that. We also remember the last time around, everybody declared Mitt Romney the winner, and it turned out he didn't win.
Right. Totally. So, and I think this undermines Iowa's case for being first in the nation.
Yes.
When they have these shenanigans happen and then, refuse to be held accountable and refuse to be transparent and revisit results. The entire caucusing process, I think, in a lot of ways is really troubling.
Yes.
If you're an hourly wage worker and you can't get time off, your vote doesn't count. If you're deployed military personnel and you're overseas, your vote doesn't count.
Didn't they change that for the military this year?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
But for a number of people, for a large swath of Iowa voters, they can't participate, and that's why participation is so low. I mean, you hear people belly aching about only 3% of Iowans are part of this process. No kidding.
It's a crazy system. It should not happen. We say that every 4 years, but. Nobody's got the backbone to change it. But the other question that just raises with me, the story you just told me, is how do you explain, right? Are you a millennial? You're a millennial.
I'm a millennial.
She's a millennial.
I'm full millennial.
Yeah.
Right.
1989.
Now, how do you explain that millennials, these college kids, a lot of them young women, will go for Bernie over Hillary?
Yeah,
who could
and
be
more
the first
young women going for Bernie than Hillary.
Yes, many more. Who could be the first woman president? What is that all about?
Well, I think a lot of millennials have a very strong contrarian streak. And when they're expected to do one thing, there's a certain perverse pleasure in doing the opposite of what's expected. And I think particularly for a lot of young women, there's just been this drumbeat for the last year of young women have to like Hillary Clinton because she's going to be the first woman president. And if you're a young woman, that's the only thing you should care about, and that's the only issue you should care about, so you have to like Hillary Clinton. And I think for a lot of these women, including a lot of women that I talked to when I was there, there's a sense of like, no, I don't have to be on board with that. I don't have to vote for somebody just because of the prospect of making history. I mean, many of these kids voted for Obama. They got to see history got made. And there are things that they care about way more. And the fact, I think, that Bernie Sanders has promised free college tuition is a really big deal. I heard so many students bring that up.
Politically, that's a really smart move to get the youth vote out, man. And it's a real problem.
Yeah. I have to say, and every time I hear Hillary say, I'm trying not to be too one-sided here, but I hear Hillary say, no, we can't do that. No, we can't have single payer here. No, we can't have free college tuition here. No, we can't. And she's trying to dampen everybody's expectations, right?
It's true.
So
true. She's
I ran into a friend yesterday who told me, he said, it reminds me of my mother, right? I have a girlfriend, and her mother said, No, you may really like her. She's not right for you, right? Just putting kids down, you know? And Hillary comes across that way, I think, as a scold almost sometimes.
I thought that was one of Bernie's best moments in the debate last night. Was when he was asked, why do you think you can get single-payer health care through? And he said, well, every other developed nation has it, and I believe in America, and if they can get it, we can get it. Which is a really good way, a really politically smart way of talking about these things. I mean, Hillary Clinton is basically telling Democratic primary voters not to have faith in voters, not to have faith in the ability to affect change through the political process.
Follow your head, not your heart. You know what?
I know. I mean, it's just like, wah, wah.
All right. And there is now the first primary in the nation coming up. And if you thought it was tense last night between Hillary and Bernie, you ain't seen nothing yet when you hear what Donald Trump has been saying about Ted Cruz. And Ted Cruz has been saying about Ben Carson. Oh, my God.
Best election ever.
Betsy Woodruff will be right back at 866-55-PRESS.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is the story of my grandfather. When I was 19 years old, his right hand was crushed in a printing press. He was supposed to lose the hand, but a young doctor saved it just in time for the war. This is the story of the war. My grandfather repaired tanks. Behind the front lines, away from the cameras, he would pull pieces of dead men from the machines and send the machines back out to the field. This is the story of the war a decade later. Back then, you didn't talk about depression. There was no such thing as PTSD. When my uncle, age 7, asked him who won the war, my grandfather said, nobody. This is the story of my grandfather, the machinist. I have a newspaper from 1981, a story about the Nobel Prize for Physics, a photograph of the winner, a Harvard man standing by his machines. This man is not my grandfather. Beneath the photo, my grandfather has written, I designed and built almost everything in this picture. They worked together for 10 years, but my grandmother says the physicist never even remembered his name. If you asked that Harvard man, there would be no story of my grandfather, just a pair of disembodied hands. This is the problem with stories. They have to leave something out. The editor cuts a line and someone's face fades. The editor says 200 words or less and suddenly a whole family goes missing. The spotlight isn't about the light, it's how it makes everything around it dark. My grandfather's face is erased from every story. The machines survive, but the man who made them doesn't. The machines make the photo, but their maker is out of frame. But we choose where to point the camera. We can choose how to tell the story. We can choose which clothing the hero wears. I could tell you this is a story about a soldier, or I could tell you this is a story about the blue-collar man, but really, this is just the story of my grandfather. I did not know him. I was born too late, but my family tells me his name. Alfred Franzosa. I know that name might only live in this moment. that there are other stories with greater stakes, but still, I will tell you his name. I will repair this old machine. I will let my grandfather live again because I could not know him while he was living. Once, when he was younger than I am now, his right hand was crushed by a printing press, crushed by other people's stories. When it healed, he began to build. He used his hands to build tanks and his hands to build cradles. His hands were the last thing to touch dead soldiers and the first to touch his newborn sons. He built a good family, and that family built me, and now I use my hands to build his story. The story is not a eulogy. A eulogy seals the casket. A eulogy lets no air out. This story is a resurrection. Jesus was not resurrected by God. He was brought back by the people who told his stories. It does not take a miracle to raise the dead, to leave behind the tombstone and take the name with you.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Betsy Woodruff, Daily Beast. Betsy, what's going on in New Hampshire on the Republican side? Let's talk to that side for a little. Just looking at CNN's latest tracking poll shows Donald Trump at 29%, with Marco Rubio coming up in second place at 18%. Now, I thought this was New Hampshire where John Kasich and Chris Christie and Jeb Bush were going to show their stuff.
I know.
And what about Ted Cruz?
so much conventional wisdom that hasn't been really helpful this time. Nobody really knows what's going on in New Hampshire. All we know is Donald Trump's the front runner, and if he doesn't win, the entire polling science is bunk and worthless. Yeah. That's all we really know. Donald Trump up here at about, I think he's been roughly about 30% in most polls for like the last 6 months. We know about a third of New Hampshireites really like him. And then the lower half of sort of the polling graph is just spaghetti. No one really knows what's going on there. Now, we've had about, I think, 2 recent polls showing Rubio in second place. We've had Rubio making some significant gains in tracking polls. So it's plausible that he could do quite well, that he could come in second. That would obviously be a big deal for him. But we just don't know. I think the biggest candidate to keep an eye on is Ted Cruz, because if he does a really bad job, I mean, if he gets beaten by like Bush or Kasich, it could totally dampen the momentum that he has from Iowa. Cruz has started kind of transitioning, even before the Iowa caucuses, started kind of shifting his message in some subtle ways to be more New Hampshire friendly. He rolled out this video of liberty leaders for Cruz, libertarian types, people who supported Ron Paul, who are now supporting him, who argue that he carries the mantle of Ron Paul. That seems like something designed to appeal to New Hampshireites, but in terms of polls, it hasn't really materialized to help him out. So, TBD, I guess.
So, I guess it looks like Trump, and if Trump doesn't win here, it seems to me he's done.
Totally. If Trump doesn't win here, then he's a paper tiger.
Thanks, Betsy. We'll see you in Manchester.
Sure.
All right,
this
thanks.
is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold. From the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks.
And 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness.
My beauty.
My power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired.
Tapped.
And tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, here we go, The Bill Press Show. On this Friday, February 5, we're live here in Washington, D.C. We're brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox. They are the people who keep this government running day in and day out, all the many different government agencies. And for more information, you can go to their website at afge.org. We salute them for the good work, thank them for the support of the program. Yes, indeed, we saw a little different kind of Donald Trump up in New Hampshire yesterday, doing things that most candidates do routinely, but Donald Trump so far has refused to do. Ben Schreckinger, our good friend from Politico, following Donald Trump around and joins us on our news line this morning. Hey, Ben, how are you?
Hey, Bill. I'm hanging in there.
Yeah, well, good for
on
you.
the trail straight from Iowa to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
But
did you fly on Trump's plane from Iowa to New Hampshire?
No, Trump. I was once invited on Trump's plane back in July, and then before I could get on. Actually, no, I couldn't get on. And I haven't been invited back on since.
Well,
so I did have to fly commercial out of Des Moines.
I think it's great that you were able to fly from Iowa and then to Florida to pick up some new clothes with Ben Carson and then to New Hampshire.
Yeah, and I do keep all of my nicest clothes in Florida.
Oh, yeah, man.
There are other states where I keep sort of the backup, but my best stuff is in Palm Beach with Ben Carson.
Now, you were saying, what I saw yesterday from Trump is he's actually like working rope lines, knocking on doors. Having a small little group. He's gotten into retail politics.
Yeah, that's right. And those were two events that were added late Wednesday to his Thursday schedule. He did like a 10-minute stop in Exeter after his town hall, a meeting with business people. And then from there, he went to a changing of a police shift. Took a picture with a group of policemen, answered a few questions, and sort of greeted those police officers one by one. So he seems to be receptive to the criticism that he's not doing enough of that small bore stuff, and that he's not sort of going all out in New Hampshire in the closing stretch because he was in Arkansas on Wednesday. He's going to be in South Carolina later tonight. So he does seem to be adjusting, even if it's just slightly, after that loss in Iowa.
How have you talked to his staff? Are they cocky or confident about New Hampshire? And do you buy, or do they buy that New Hampshire is a must win for him?
So they're not going to say that it's a must win for him. It would just be, I think, especially after the lesson of Iowa, where he predicted a win and lost. What his campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, did say to me the other day, when I asked, listen, you guys, your candidate said he was going to win New Hampshire. He lost. What lessons are you taking away from that loss? He said that it's two completely different states, two very different races. That no nominee in modern Republican history, other than an incumbent president, has won both of those states, all of which are fair points. At the same time, they are making these adjustments here. Trump was tamping down expectations yesterday. He was saying, I hope to do well. I hope I'm going to win. I think I'm going to do very well here. So there is a change in tone after this humbling loss in Iowa.
How much do you think the Scott Brown endorsement helps him?
That's a good question. I'd probably equate it to the Sarah Palin endorsement. There's a group of Republicans with whom Scott Brown is very popular in New Hampshire. Clearly, Trump had a big endorsement from Sarah Palin and still lost Iowa. So it's difficult, and I haven't seen polling on this on exactly how many votes will move. But like the Palin endorsement, it can't hurt.
Yeah. Well, it seems that while we pay so much attention to Trump, that the real and it's not taken for granted he's going to win. He's certainly been the front runner, but that the real contest is for all the rest of them to come in second or third, right? Just so they have a ticket out of New Hampshire.
That's right. Ted Cruz has been second in New Hampshire in a lot of polls here, but Marco Rubio has this 3-2-1 strategy. Finished third in Iowa, which he did do. Finished second in New Hampshire, which he now needs to do. Then finished first in South Carolina, which I don't think he will do. But for someone like Marco Rubio, you got to finish in second. You have to finish ahead of Jeb Bush, ahead of Chris Christie, ahead of John Kasich. And if Rubio can pull off a strong second place finish, very good chance that the establishment really does consolidate around him pretty quickly. If he doesn't pull it out, if Cruz beats him, and even worse, if someone like Jeb Bush finishes ahead of him, that just continues to muddle that part of the party.
Well, Jeb, if this is a must-win for Jeb Bush, a must-show is there's a must-show for. Wait a minute. Let me start all over. If New Hampshire is a must-win for Donald Trump, a must-show is there for Jeb Bush. He recognizes that. He's brought his mother out And Jamie, if we have his brother in an ad that they must have cut some time ago, they've been holding for Jeb, and they rolled it out yesterday.
The first job of the president is to protect America. Our next president must be prepared to lead. I know Jeb. I know his good heart and his strong backbone. Jeb will unite our country. He knows how to bring the world together against terror, and he knows when tough measures must be taken. Experience and judgment count in the Oval Office. Jeb Bush is a leader who will keep our country safe. Jeb Bush.
There it is.
You must truly be desperate to come to me for help, is what George W. Bush must have
I miss that voice. I miss that turr.
Strong on turr.
Turr. What do you? I know you've been following Trump, but what do you hear from the Bush folks and people who are following him?
One of the most interesting things is that Lindsey Graham, who has become a Bush surrogate, endorsed Bush, said that Bush needs to tie or beat Rubio here to stay in the race. So I don't know if his campaign knew that was coming or if they're beside themselves. But when you have one of your top endorsers saying that puts huge pressure on you. It just really is going to add enormously to the chorus of voices saying, get the heck out of this race if Jeb can't match Rubio here or beat him.
Yeah, I'll say. But surrogates are not doing too well these last couple of days. Lindsey Graham saying that is as bad as Rick Santorum saying in Morning Joe yesterday he couldn't think of one thing Rubio has accomplished as the United States Senator, right?
Oh my, yeah, that was worse. That is, that is footage for ads for as long as Rubio's in the race. That's one of those moments that really just crystallizes the doubts about somebody.
And Christie, who has dubbed Marco Rubio, of course, as the bubble boy, and keeps using that phrase and bragging about all the questions he takes from reporters. Chris Christie takes from reporters, and how long his town halls are compared to Marco Rubio's town hall. Is this is Christie getting any traction, or is this sort of the last of his, shooting off his big mouth and then going back to New Jersey?
He's certainly getting attention for it. People are buzzing about the bubble boy attacks, their Atechi attacks.
Yeah.
We haven't had the chance to. No public polling has come out that fully encapsulate the period since those attacks landed, and if polling does come out that can sort of show whether that's working, it'll come out like Sunday or Monday. I really do wonder. It's such a messy primary, and there's so many attacks flying sort of from every different corner. It's hard to predict which ones will actually catch on and do damage here, but it'll be interesting to see the polling.
Right, and the thing about New Hampshire that has always been true and plays such an important factor is there's so many independents in New Hampshire, number one, right? And when you go into the primary, you can get any ballot you want. Isn't that the way it works in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, that's right. Independents can vote in either primary. They're a huge swing factor.
Which is good for Trump, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, you would imagine. One sort of note of caution is that in Iowa, everyone assumed first-time caucus goers would break for Trump, and looking at the adjusted entrance poll data, they weren't the boon for him that they should have been.
Mm-hmm.
Cruz, he may have won them, but not by as much as he should have, and Cruz performed very well with them. So it's possible that sort of despite the conventional wisdom, independents, end up being a really strong group for someone like John Kasich, and not as strong for Trump as everyone expected. And then the other X factor is that a lot of people may end up voting for Bernie Sanders, a lot of those independents, and whether those are people who would otherwise vote for Trump or Kasich or Christie, it's possible there are Jeb people who would have voted for Hillary. There are a lot of unknowns with those independents that make the whole thing more exciting.
I'm glad you mentioned John Kasich because we forgot to mention him earlier. He's another one. I think this is a make or break time in New Hampshire, and doesn't look like he's going to come out of New Hampshire. Well, we'll see what happens. Hey, Ben, good good for you to be up there and good for you to take some time for us this morning. Appreciate it very, very much. We'll catch up with you again soon.
Great. Thanks a bunch, Bill. Talk
All
to you
right,
soon.
great. Ben Schreckinger. Been with Trump from the beginning. At first was invited on the plane, then he wrote a critical story about Donald Trump. He hasn't been invited back. And Trump attacks him by name on every chance, every occasion that he gets. I love it. Badge of honor. Yeah. We'll be right back.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
It occurred to me tonight, for the first time, that the long-winged insect that over and over again rams its body into the wood of my front door might not know what he's doing. He might not have a plan. Maybe that's just how he flies, and that is where the door is. And I remember you. The last time I saw you, a few weeks before we would graduate from high school, and a few days before you let a bullet dissolve on your tongue, dancing in a warehouse rave, sweat-drenched and strobe light battered, thrashing your arms back and thrusting them forward. The floor could get so bright and loud, we all slowed down to be more careful, but you kept dancing full sprint tornado, and sometimes you'd spin full weight into a wall and just spread your arms against it and sway back and forth like a lover reunited. This long-winged insect is not trying to get into the house. It doesn't know there is a house. Can't imagine a life beyond that door. All it can see is the light. You and I were both 17 when you died. And ever since then, I have envied you. How you are remembered for towering, unclaimed potential instead of living to look regret in the face. You didn't have to come home 3 weeks later and explain to your little brother why you took too much medicine. Your addiction is remembered as a tragedy, not a betrayal. Your suicide attempt became a suicide, not an unpaid hospital bill. And only tonight did it occur to me that maybe that night when you let your teeth touch metal, you might not have known what you were doing. You might not have had a plan. Maybe you had hit that door so many times you couldn't imagine it might let you through. I'm still ashamed to admit it, but I have always secretly believed you did it for me, that you wanted to show me that there is a way out of all of this. Not so that I would follow you, but so I would understand that every day that I am alive is a day that I choose to be alive. And when the music stops, you still get to keep on dancing. And when the light is so bright it blinds, you can dance with your eyes closed. And if in that dark you come up against a wall, you keep your arms out wide and you dance with the wall.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go now at 10 minutes before the top of the hour. Just wanted to wrap on that point we were talking with Ben about in terms of the latest standings in New Hampshire. And I think this is a moment of truth in New Hampshire where we're really going to winnow the field. I mean, I think, what do we have, 9 candidates left? And ABC, by the way, announced this morning that Carly Fiorina will not be allowed on stage Saturday. So there'll be just 8 men on stage Saturday night. There'll be no JV debate.
It's an interesting decision, by the way. I mean,
it seems to me if they can make room for 8, they can make room for 9.
Right. I mean, if they had said, like, we're going to take the top 4.
Right.
But, it's not a good look.
At any rate, just to give you the rundown there, with so much at stake, Donald Trump is way out in front at 29, followed by, now, Marco Rubio in second place at 18. Ted Cruz in third place at 13. Then John Kasich at 10. at 12, and Jeb Bush at 10. So Cruz and Kasich and Jeb are basically margin of error, all the same.
Yeah.
And then Chris Christie and Carly Fiorina are way down at 4%. Then Tuesday, I think, is going to winnow the field for sure. Hey, we're going to be tweeting out my column today. And the headline on it is "The Blurb Heard Round the World." And if you've heard about my book, my new book, Buyer's Remorse, that's probably all you've heard about it, which is it's got a blurb on it from Bernie Sanders. Just want to point out again, Bernie's blurb. Yeah, he did blurb the book, and I'm very grateful for the fact that he did so. And all he says in his blurb is what he says in every speech, that we need a political revolution. I just want to read it to you again. Bernie says, quote, "Bill Press makes the case why, long after taking the oath of office, the next president of the United States must keep rallying the people who elected him or her on behalf of progressive causes. That's the only real way. That's the only way that real change will happen. Read this book." Bernie Sanders. So the blurb, as some people say, is not an attack on President Obama. He's just saying we need to be forceful and be out there and making sure the next president. And that's the thrust of the book. I do talk about the ways, all the good things President Obama has done. Again, the name of the book, Buyer's Remorse, How Obama Let Progressives Down. Talk about all the good things that he's done, but then also talk about ways in which he has disappointed us, left us wanting more. Either because there are things that he just didn't do or anything about at all, like campaign finance reform, for example, or for the first 4 years, nothing about immigration reform, or because he stopped short of where he could have gone, like with a stimulus, not big enough, like with Obamacare, no public plan option, or ways in which he just continued the policies of George Bush and Dick Cheney, like this illegal use of drones, these killing machines, many, many, many more drone attacks under President Obama than under George Bush. And we didn't even know where they are because the whole thing is veiled in secrecy. And like the pursuit of journalists just because they were reporting on leaks from government officials. So wrap it up. There it is, the book, Buyer's Remorse. You can get your own signed copy. You can pick it up at the bookstore now. It's out. Or get it on Amazon.com. If you want a signed copy inscribed, let us know how you want it signed, and we'll get it out to you. Go to our website at BillPressShow.com. Follow the link. $27, all inclusive. You'll get the book right to you, signed the way you want. And when we come back, pardon me, President Obama with a fairly light day at the White House today. We'll tell you what's on his schedule.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
How about it? Coming up, hour number 3. Remember, you'll have to wait around until 5 o'clock Eastern on Free Speech TV to catch the program. I hope you do, but if you want to watch us right away, go to our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell from Michigan comes along next to talk about the situation in Flint. She's been working with Congressman Dan Kildee out there. And Niall Stanish, the managing editor of The Hill newspaper, will be here in studio with us with all the latest on the Washington scene. That's hour number 3 coming up right away on TawkrTV.
For Mike Brown. I'm sick of writing this poem, but bring the boy. His new name, his same old body, ordinary black dead thing, bring him. And we will mourn until we forget what we are mourning. And isn't that what being black is about? Not the joy of it, but the feeling when you're looking at your child, turn your head, then poof, no more child. That feeling, that's black. Think, once a white girl was kidnapped, and that's the Trojan War. Later, up the block, Troy got shot, and that was Tuesday. Are we not worthy of a city of ash, of 1,000 ships launched because we are missed? I demand a war to bring the black boy back, no matter what his name is this time. I at least demand a song. A song will do. Or a head.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, we got a great big third hour coming up with Niall Stanish from The Hill, the associate editor at The Hill, here in studio with us. And then we'll be talking to Congresswoman Debbie Dingell from Michigan about the latest on Flint, Michigan. President Obama, 2 things on his calendar today. He and the vice president get the daily briefing this morning at about 10 o'clock. And then this afternoon, he will be later this morning, actually. Just before noon, he'll be meeting with Senator Bob Casey. Really good guy. Love Bob Casey. Senator from Pennsylvania. That's it. It's casual Friday at the White House today. Yeah, I don't know. He may not even put a tie on.
Ease into that weekend.
Into the weekend, yeah. And our briefing with Press Secretary Josh Earnest at 12:30. We'll come back with Niall Stanish.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money and judicial elections.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
It's getting pretty hot and heavy up in New Hampshire. Big debate last night, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, and they took the gloves off. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Happy Friday, February 5, and welcome to the Bill Press Show. Can't let you go into the weekend. Yeah, we got a lot more political stuff to talk about here, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side. That's why we're here with you and ready for your calls. On the radio, your local progressive talk radio station, we are here as your progressive morning show and your chance to sound off about the issues of the day. So give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. And on television, on Free Speech TV and our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. There with you as well, and looking forward to your calls, either your calls at 866-55-PRESS or your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. So much going on. We need the help of good friends to get through it all. Niall Stanage is associate editor at The Hill, thehill.com, and joins us fresh from Iowa in the studio. Hello, Niall. How are you?
I don't know how fresh I am. Glad to be here.
You're out there in the heartland.
I was indeed, yes.
Yeah.
It's always an interesting
Listening to all those sow belly reports on the, the radio. That's what I love. The price of corn, the price of...
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sow belly.
Yeah, I heard that when I was out there. That's why you...
No, I know. I believe you. I just...
Futures and sow belly.
It's really funny.
Makes me feel a long way from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want an American experience, man. You got it.
All right. And then Congresswoman Debbie Dingell will be joining us at the half hour with our team, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Hey.
Ray Rogers on the phones, 866-55-PRESS, ready for your calls. Monty Kanzler doing a job as a videographer today. Niall, this is my favorite part of the campaign so far. When Rick Santorum bowed out after Iowa, he immediately endorsed Marco Rubio. So the fair question is, why? What has Marco Rubio done in the Senate that would inspire you to support him? Joe Scarborough asked that question a couple of days ago, and Rick Santorum did such a miserable job that Chris Christie took that little interview and turned it into his latest campaign ad. All he did was pick up the sound from the Morning Joe.
Name one thing that he's passed.
The Republicans have been a majority for 1 year and 1 month, of which, as you know, he was running for president primarily.
Well, just one that Marco achieved, maybe a bill that he wrote.
Jeb Bush ran Florida. Donald Trump built a company. Marco Rubio finished the sentence.
You can't point to him and say, well, nothing got done, and therefore he has no accomplishments. So this is a bogus argument.
All I'm asking is a simple question. List one accomplishment that Marco Rubio has achieved in 4 years in the United States Senate.
The bottom line is there isn't a whole lot of accomplishments, Joe, and I just don't think it's a fair question.
I'm Chris Christie, and I approve this message.
Pretty nasty now, but true, right?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, a moment like that, which is unscripted and which you can turn against an opponent, is very useful, particularly if you're as pugnacious a character as Chris Christie is. I'm sure he just loved that. That's the sort of thing that he lives for, you know.
I'd like to Mika just said, okay, Jeb Bush was governor of Florida, right? Donald Trump built a company. Marco Rubio, finish the sentence.
Yeah. Difficult. And of course it goes to one of the main criticisms of Rubio that's made in the Republican Party, this idea that he's kind of this young, handsome guy who hasn't actually done very much.
It's a great ad. I mean, the fact that you don't hear Chris Christie's voice at all until the very end, he just sort of lets it speak for itself.
Makes the point. Okay, now Standish here again for the first half hour, and then Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Earlier this week, we talked about some of the trouble that Johnny Manziel, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, although we don't think he's going to be with them for much longer, he's been getting into all kinds of trouble. We found out exactly what kind of trouble he's been getting into. The WFAA 8 in Dallas, Texas, got a hold of the police report that shows that Johnny Manziel has been accused of striking his girlfriend, Colleen Crowley, multiple times and threatening further violence on her in a January 30th incident. His girlfriend, ex-girlfriend I should say, said that it appeared as though he was under the influence of some kind of drug, and Manziel allegedly told her, "Shut up or I will kill us both," shoved her into a car and dragged her by her hair. So a very disturbing story of domestic violence from one of the guys who can't seem to get his act together in the NFL, Johnny Manziel. So we'll see.
There's a couple, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, that's, he's got some real problems. Okay, so in Wisconsin, there is a school there, and they wanted to build a new fitness center. It's a middle school, a fitness center for its students. And they were trying to raise money for it, and at the very end, they got a very sizable donation from a man named Roger T. White. Okay? So because he gave so much money, they named the fitness room after him. And so...
The White Room?
The Roger T. White Pride Fitness Room, as presented by Royal Credit Union, which if you read the wrong way, could say the Roger T. White Pride Fitness Room.
Oh, God.
And so it's very innocent, but at the same time, how did you not see that coming? And so they have said, while we appreciate the great efforts of Roger T. White, we're going to change the name of the fitness center. They haven't unveiled what it's going to be yet. They're still going to honor the man, but it's definitely not going to be the White Pride Fitness Center in Wisconsin. And how about this? Megyn Kelly, who is certainly having a moment with all of her great all the great jobs that she's doing during the debates, she signed a book deal with HarperCollins this week that could be worth as much as $10 million.
Oh, my God.
Deadline.com reports $10 million. Other sources say it's between $3 and $5 million. But we do know there was a full-blown bidding war, and HarperCollins won that bidding war last night. They said that it's going to be released in the fall. It's the first time that she's written a book. So it's sort of an unprecedented fight for someone who has never written a book. But she gets a big payday out of that one way or another, man. I don't know if it's $3 million or $10 million, but she got paid.
If you get that much money, you have somebody to help you write that book.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole publishing industry. But these celebrity books, you hear all the time. They get all this money for these books, and the books never make any money.
I think a lot of times publishers pay that money for the perceived prestige of a certain book, rather than assuming it in itself will make them their money back.
Right. So you got back in time for the town hall on Wednesday night and the big debate last night. Now, I want to ask you about a couple of the issues that came up. Maybe like three really between Hillary and Bernie. One is, which one is the better the true progressive?
Right.
Is this kind of a silly debate, or does it mean anything?
It's somewhere between the two, I think, actually. I mean, obviously, this is a big subject for Bernie Sanders, and Hillary Clinton doesn't want to concede the ground of allowing him to claim that he's the true progressive. So she's arguing that progressive means someone who makes progress, even someone like her who clearly favors a much more incremental approach than Bernie Sanders is thereby making progress and is entitled to that label. I'm not sure that most people who term themselves progressives would necessarily agree with that argument, but it's an attempt, I think, to essentially neutralize an attack on her from Sanders.
But she opens herself up to criticism, doesn't he? Okay, Bernie says, I'm a progressive, and he is, no doubt about that. Mm-hmm. But he also voted against the Brady bill, which is something he's got to explain. Okay, she says, I'm a progressive, and I really think in her heart of hearts that she is. She's done some really progressive. At the same time, you know, she supported Keystone, she supported TPP, she supports the death penalty, she's against restoration of Glass-Steagall, she's against single payer. You can go down the list. She's for the Iraq War, or was, right?
Sure.
So she's got a lot more anti-progressive actions to explain, to defend, if you will, than Bernie, right?
Absolutely.
So why get in this pissing contest with Bernie over trying to claim that she's a better progressive than he is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, and I think that that's part of the problem, is that she's opening up a debate that within the Democratic Party electorate, it's very difficult for her to win. Her argument is that essentially Bernie is in some fashion misdefining the word progressive. I think that's an overly semantic argument to make in a debate, to be honest.
Now, on health care, right, the two is Bernie is saying, okay, we got the Affordable Care Act, it's better than anything we've had so far, but it's not as good as single payer, and we ought to sort of transition to that. And Hillary is saying, we got Obamacare, it's great, it's 90%, and we can make it 100%, but the last thing we need to do is have another contentious debate, right, over health care.
Right.
Start from scratch.
Yeah.
Who wins that one?
Among Democrats, I think Bernie Sanders wins that one. I have always found it somewhat confounding that Hillary Clinton wants to make an issue of this, because if you look at opinion polls of Democratic voters, the number of people who favour so-called Medicare for all or a universal single-payer system is massive. It's something of the order of 70 or 80%. Now, I think that Hillary Clinton is getting into that debate partly looking toward a general election and saying, I'm not a candidate who's going to get us mired in these fights that have gone on for years. She's someone who's more interested in, as I say, incremental progress. But for Democrats, I think the goal of universal health care is obviously one that has been highly prized for 50 years.
I thought Bernie's strongest point on that issue, strongest point was when he said, what do you mean we can't do this? Canada does it, England does it, France does it, Germany does it, Finland does it, Sweden does it. We can't?
Right. And
we're the greatest country in the world, as we often like to say.
After all, to be able to do so. Then we get into the third issue, Wall Street money. Okay, Washington Post yesterday reporting that in the last, up through December, in her campaign, she'd received $21.4 million from big banks and hedge funds. 1 out of every $10 that she's received comes directly from Wall Street firms. Hillary says, how dare you question either the campaign contributions or the speaking fees that I got from Goldman Sachs. Here's what she accuses Bernie Sanders of. Of course, we heard this last night, and the reaction from the audience.
I think it's time to end the very artful smear that you and your campaign have been carrying out in recent weeks. And let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about the issues that divide us.
Bernie tries to respond. She keeps talking over him. a smear to raise that issue?
Yeah, I thought that was the single worst moment for Hillary Clinton last night, actually.
Yep.
I do think that she had good moments, I should say, because we're talking about like several that were in Bernie's advantage. But I thought that was really bad, to be perfectly honest. I don't think that anyone, and I said this on Twitter, I don't think anyone except the absolutely most partisan Hillary Clinton supporters believe that he has smeared her. I certainly don't believe that a significant number of undecided Democrats think it is a smear to raise the issue that you just spoke about, these vast sums of money that come to her from Wall Street.
We talk about the money that the Republicans get from the Koch brothers. Is that a smear?
Right.
No, it's a fact.
No, absolutely.
But on foreign policy, to be fair, I mean, I thought that's one place where clearly she has an advantage, and rightfully so, right?
Yes.
Over Bernie.
Yes.
And it shows.
It does, and she has a much greater fluency on the issues than he does. I didn't think that he made any obvious gaffe on foreign policy, but he's just quite obviously, almost visibly more comfortable talking about certain other subjects.
And overall, the thing that I find a little puzzling is that the Clinton campaign, and Hillary herself, has decided that what distinguishes her from Bernie, and she keeps making this argument, is I'm a pragmatist. You know, I don't promise the sky. Lower your expectations. I mean, you know, pie in the sky, all that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily, particularly for young people, an argument that they want to hear, right? And she said, you got all these hopes and dreams and aspirations. Yeah, well, hey, that's not real. Come on, you know, get down, get practical.
Yeah.
Be pragmatic. Really?
Yeah, it's certainly not the most inspiring message, and it took me back in 2008. I don't know if you remember, she gave a very openly sarcastic speech about how about Obama, that angels would sing and all the sun would shine down and all that.
Yeah, right.
And you know, it had something of that to it, and it certainly didn't work effectively in 2008.
It is interesting. Several of the arguments that we hear against Bernie are ones that were leveled against also, you know, her touting her experience. She does have more experience, but that was the argument she used against Barack Obama in 2008.
Sure.
Yeah. How well that work out?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. No, he very effectively countered in the same way that experience doesn't necessarily mean you make the right decisions.
Now we are up in New Hampshire, and this could be the end of the road for several Republican candidates, so take a look at them with Niall Standish from The Hill, thehill.com, and we'll be right back.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
Today, in this country, we are having a conversation about police violence, the killing of black men, and what all that means. It is sad that this is happening and that every day there's a new incident to cause us to keep thinking about it and talking about it. But it is extraordinary that the American people are having to deal with this every day, whether you're watching CNN or MSNBC, Fox, or ABC News. All the news channels are talking about police violence and what does that mean against black people. Many people probably look at that, certainly have looked at it in the past, and they have said that these poor black men are doing bad things, and that's why they are ending up in confrontations with police without any understanding of their lives of these poor black young men. Part of what has been going on for decades is that poor black people live in communities that suffer from hyper-surveillance of the police. The police are more likely to be in their communities. The police are more likely to arrest them. The police are more likely to stop them even if they're not doing anything. And that is what is so hard for the American people to believe, that you would get stopped and searched and arrested by the police and not doing anything. But this is starting to come out as people are telling the stories over and over again. But this has been the condition, this hyper-surveillance by police, making it more likely for people to get a record, to be known by the police, and then once they get in the system, it is almost impossible to get out because of the whole system of being on parole and missing an appointment or fraternizing with a person who has a criminal record, getting you right back in the jail, and then going back again and again and again. This is coming to be seen by the American people in a way that it has never been seen before. But why are people in these communities in the first place? That's getting peeled away. People are there because of housing discrimination. They are there because this is the only place where affordable housing can be found. They are there because that's where their families live, and people are drawn to being in communities where they are comfortable. The combination keeps people in these low-income communities where they are an easy target for hyper-surveillance and then everything that comes from it. And so as we think about these issues, we have to understand that while you as an individual in this society, as a white individual, you may not carry personal racism, but that does not keep the system from operating in a racist way.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell at the half hour. Niall Standish here from The Hill, Associate Editor. Niall, who's left after New Hampshire?
Well, I think
among the Republicans,
there'll be quite a few who aren't, put it that way. I think that one of the things about New Hampshire is that clearly a number of the so-called moderates have placed all their chips in New Hampshire, and the nature of that bet is that several of them are going to lose. So I think if you look at John Kasich, Chris Christie, Jeb Bush, one of them maybe gets out of New Hampshire still retaining a viable campaign, but certainly all three don't. I think it'll be very difficult for them.
Kasich has said, like, if I get burned here, I'm going home.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's already laid it out there. It ain't going on if he doesn't finish well.
No, and I mean, there's no reason for him to do so anyway, because he'd be going to South Carolina and then the South, none of which are good, is favourable territory for someone like John Kasich.
Right. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio probably come out, but Ted Cruz has a lot on the line in New Hampshire after winning Iowa, right?
He does, yeah. Although I do think that expectations for Cruz aren't all that high because New Hampshire's electorate tends to be more moderate, certainly than Iowa's. In saying all that, you're right in that he can't come sixth or something. I mean, that would be kind of bad, but I don't think we're going to see something with Cruz like we saw with Rick Santorum in 2012 or Huckabee in 2008, where they won Iowa and then just got pretty much killed thereafter.
Of all the campaigns, Ben Carson's may be in the worst shape today.
Yes, Ben Carson's campaign.
Although he's looking good because he's a fresh set of clothes.
He got home to Florida to pick up his suitcase or to refresh his suitcase. Ben Carson's campaign, anyone in Washington will tell you, is quite a strange enterprise in all sorts of ways.
Weird.
Yeah,
it's just so weird.
And people being fired or people leaving.
50 people fired yesterday. I mean, it's everybody knows it's over except Ben Carson, maybe, right?
Exactly.
And also probably that's true for Carly Fiorina, who won't even be on stage tomorrow night. 8 out of 9 will. She will not. Which is probably a bad decision. Which is a bad decision. Hey, now we're just getting started, but we're out of time. Thanks so much for coming in. Don't forget, check it out, thehill.com. Go there.
This
several times a day,
is the Bill
thehill.com.
Press Show.
Across from me at the kitchen table, my mother smiles over red wine that she drinks out of a measuring glass. She says she doesn't deprive herself, but I've learned to find nuance in every movement of her fork, in every crinkle in her brow as she offers me the uneaten pieces on her plate. I've realized she only eats dinner when I suggest it. I wonder what she does when I'm not there to do so. Maybe this is why my house feels bigger each time I return. It's proportional. As she shrinks, the space around her seems increasingly vast. She wanes while my father waxes. His stomach has grown round with wine, late nights, oysters, poetry, a new girlfriend who was overweight as a teenager, but my dad reports now she's crazy about fruit. It was the same with his parents. As my grandmother became frail and angular, her husband swelled to red, round cheeks, rotund stomach, and I wonder if my lineage is one of women shrinking, making space for the entrance of men into their lives, not knowing how to fill it back up once they leave. I have been taught accommodation. My brother never thinks before he speaks. I have been taught to filter. How can anyone have a relationship to food, he asks, laughing, as I eat the black bean soup I chose for its lack of carbs. I want to say we come from difference, Jonas. You have been taught to grow out. I have been taught to grow in. You learn from our father how to commit, how to produce, to roll each thought off your tongue with confidence. You used to lose your voice every other week from shouting so much. I learned to absorb. I took lessons from our mother in creating space around myself. I learned to read the knots in her forehead while the guys went out for oysters. And I never meant to replicate her, but spend enough time sitting across from someone and you pick up their habits. That's why women in my family have been shrinking for decades. We all learned it from each other, the way each generation taught the next how to knit, weaving silence in between the threads, which I can still feel as I walk through this ever-growing house. Skin itching, picking up all the habits my mother has unwittingly dropped, like bits of crumpled paper from her pocket on her countless trips, from bedroom to kitchen to bedroom again. Nights I hear her creep down to eat plain yogurt in the dark, a fugitive stealing calories to which she does not feel entitled. Deciding how many bites is too many, how much space she deserves to occupy. Watching the struggle, I either mimic or hate her, and I don't want to do either anymore, but the burden of this house has followed me across the country. I asked 5 questions in genetics class today, and all of them started with the word sorry. I don't know the capstone requirements. I don't know the capstone requirements for the sociology major because I spent the whole meeting deciding whether or not I could have another piece of pizza. A circular obsession I never wanted, but inheritance is accidental. Still staring at me with wine-soaked lips from across the kitchen table.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour now, here we go. The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C. and our studio on Capitol Hill, where we're brought to you today in part by Amalgamated Bank. Yes, indeed, a bank with progressive values. Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but it's not. In fact, for almost a century, Amalgamated Bank has been the first choice bank of progressive organizations and individuals nationwide. And, you know, we very seldom walk into a bank these days to do business. So you can do business with Amalgamated Bank from anywhere in the country. Do all your banking online and be a proud progressive at the same time. Check them out at amalgamatedbank.com. Latest breaking news, Peter, on job numbers out from the Department of Labor.
Job numbers are in. Yes, indeed. We've got the numbers, 151,000 jobs it added in December. The unemployment rate drops to 4.9. That is the first time that it has been under 5% since February of 2008.
Whoa. Yeah, which is a fateful year.
That's a big deal.
151,000 jobs, a little down from before, but that's still way, way up. Over 100,000 and maybe like, I don't know, what it'll be like 36 months in a row now.
They also point out that, of course, these are January's numbers that take a look at sort of a lot of the part-time seasonal employment goes away.
Yeah.
So this isn't unusual to see it go down a little bit.
No. That's a good number. Meanwhile, with all the politicking that we've been covering, one big story has not gotten as much attention as it deserves. We've been talking about it for a long time, and finally it's getting some national attention, and that is this very outrageous story about what was allowed to happen to the people of Flint. Joining us now on our news line with the latest, representing Michigan's 12th Congressional District, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. Hey, Congresswoman, good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Bill. It's great to be with you.
Thank you. What is the latest on the situation in Flint? We know that now they're back on their original source of water, but they're still drinking out, for the most part, out of plastic bottles. How long is this going to go on? And do any of them have safe water now in their homes?
Well, you know, we've got a lot of different problems going on here. One of them is, how do you ever trust government again? How do you trust what's being said to you?
Right.
How do people who've had so much misinformation and so many distruths told to them? So actually, the EPA did another testing of water, and it said that it appears that the filters are working in many of the homes that had high lead content, but is still telling pregnant women and young children to drink out of bottled water. But if you're living in Flint, I think one of the biggest things that's happened coming out of this is that government at all levels failed the people of Flint, and how do you trust anybody? What's the credibility? I mean, I'll give you one example of misinformation and people not knowing what's safe and what's not safe, and that is whether it's even safe to bathe in the water. And there are rashes that a number of children and adults are getting, and the governor of the state said, if I had grandchildren, I would let my grandchildren bathe in the water, and the attorney general in the state said he wouldn't let his children bathe in the water. That was just last week. So I'm not, it's really not clear, even listening to medical experts, what's safe and what's not safe. And what's really hard is that if you live in Flint, you don't want to hear the politics that everybody on both sides doing. You just want to have safe drinking water and know that, you know, your children haven't been damaged. And nobody has credibility with them. I'll be that blunt.
Yeah, right. I mean, if I've got kids and I hear a debate over whether or not it's safe, you know, to have my kids bathe in that water, they're not going to bathe in that water.
No way.
If there's any question about it, they're not going to bathe in that water. But and now in the middle of this, I know the mayor met with President Obama, asked for some help. President Obama promised this help for the city of Flint, and Senate Republicans are blocking this financial aid to the city.
Well, Senator Stabenow and Senator Peters have been working very hard to try to come up with some federal help, and my understanding is, and they're attaching it as an amendment to the Senate energy bill.
Energy bill, right.
And they blocked cloture yesterday, which is actually a good thing, so it didn't cut off debate, and they are saying that they may be able to work out some kind of compromise next week. There are a number of procedural issues connected to it, but I think some people are worried about the precedent setting. But, you know, the people of Flint don't really care about politics between politicians. Right. They didn't create this problem, and they just need help.
Yeah. No,
by the way, the state's got some responsibility.
Well, I want to get to
government
that
at all
too.
levels
Yeah.
failed, but the state is the one that failed to implement the processes that would have kept the water from corroding.
Well, that's a big question. I mean, did the governor know? Had they been warned about the situation at Flint and taken no action?
You know, I'm going to tell you, I don't know where the truth is and where the truth isn't. I think that the form of government that we have in the state, these emergency financial managers, this shows you what happens when all of the emphasis is placed on cutting dollars and there's no value placed on human life or human safety.
Yeah, good point.
That's what's happened here.
And that's why they made that decision, correct?
Right.
To save
I don't
money.
think that, honestly, I think it was absolute ineptitude that caused this, a callousness of not caring about the people there. Do I think the governor knew this was happening? No. But do I think that he had approved a sense of government that let something like this happen? Yes. And quite frankly, I don't believe on piling on, and I don't think it's time for cheap political shots, but I have never seen any situation in my lifetime handled more poorly than I have seen the last few months when the facts did become available. It's inexcusable and cannot be defended.
Yeah, and as you point out, it was to a certain extent local, but there was a state, what do they call them, the emergency manager?
Financial manager. It's happened at all levels. Look, EPA is not without
I was just going to ask you also, and EPA, right? They didn't really sound the alarm or foresee.
No, I mean, that's inexcusable. As I say, government at all levels failed, and there will be a bill on the floor of the House Tuesday. We'll debate it Tuesday night that was introduced by all the members of the Michigan delegation. Kildee and Upton led it on transparency and requiring EPA to immediately sound an alert when something like this happens again. And it was only introduced this week, and it will be on the floor of the House Tuesday night, and I predict it will pass on a suspension calendar Wednesday. So we are united in the House in making sure this never happens again.
Great. You know, as you know, last night in the debate up in New Hampshire, this issue was raised. Not that there's any difference between Hillary and Bernie on providing all the help that's needed to the people of Flint and making sure this doesn't happen again. But Bernie added the point of that if this had been an affluent, white, suburban community, the response might have been a little bit different. Is that a fair comment?
I think it is a fair comment. I think we're talking about environmental justice. I keep in my head over and over and over again saying, how would this have happened in my district? What would I have done? I mean, I would have been, quite frankly, sitting in the governor's office and saying, I need you to come down here and see what's happening. And I think he would have come. And I think we really have to worry about whose voices get listened to. How did people that were just so incompetent do something like this? How did you have an entire wall? You know, I want to tell you some other things. There are 151,000 water systems in this country. Flint is by far not the only urban city that has situations that could become endangered by a lack of competency.
Hey, it happened in Washington not so long ago. You remember that, right?
And when it got identified, they were able to immediately begin using the phosphate, which is the chemical that needs to be added that coats the pipes that prevents the lead. And Washington's water went to acceptable lead waters within 5 months. I mean, I think one of the issues now is that there is such a level of distrust in the city of Flint that the people of Flint aren't going to believe they're safe again until the water pipes have been replaced. And I do think one of the things I worry about is anybody who's listening, my state's not untouchable. We do have I mean, pure Michigan is a great place, and our brand has clearly been hurt. But I don't want us closed for business. We are a state that has great and beautiful, wonderful water, and it's our signature. And we got to be careful that we not make ourselves untouchable to people either. People made mistakes at every level of government. Inexcusable. We need to fix them. We need to figure out what it's going to take to get it done. We need to hold the people that made it happen accountable and make sure it never happens again in any city in America.
Now let's talk about some good news from Michigan, if we can, here with Congressman Debbie Dingell. And just briefly, but President Obama was there a week or so ago to celebrate the recovery and probably the best year ever of the American auto industry, thanks to his good efforts. You're very close to that industry and have been for a long time. How are they doing? Still strong?
They are doing strong. You know, I'm a car girl and proud of it. Used to not be able to say it. Now I can. I mean, look, it's where I come from. And by the way, the American auto industry is the backbone of the American economy, and it still is. And had even President George Bush, before he left office, and Hank Paulson knew that if the auto industry collapsed, the America's economy
It's all we make anymore, right?
You know, and there are small businesses across America that are supporting the auto industry. And these are hardworking men and women. So, yes, we had the best year that we've ever had in sales last year. The industry has come roaring back. We're staying in the driver's seat of a global auto marketplace, and we want to make that keep happening, which means, by the way, we've got to be at the forefront of technology, which we're going to be as we look at connected vehicles and driverless vehicles, which are going to be both improve safety for the driver and improve fuel consumption.
Well, it's been very exciting to watch. And again, as we remember, that was a very unpopular move on President Obama's part, but he saw the importance of it and he acted. And now we see the great results. Congresswoman, it's so good to have you on the program this morning. Thanks so much for your time. Have a great weekend. We'll see you again soon.
I hope so. Thanks for having me, and I hope you do have a good weekend.
All right,
Take
Congresswoman
care.
Debbie Dingell. And, of course, we've been talking to Dan Kildee, who represents Flint, several times about this issue. On some interesting new poll out among Democrats nationwide, now that it's a two-person race. May be surprised. We'll get into that on the other side when we come back here on The Bill Press Show.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
On opening body bags after Typhoon Haiyan. I can only imagine it like unearthing a scab. Zipper breaks open one by one. Mothers trying to dig through themselves an umbilical cord to lend life to a limp ghost. There is not enough relief here to hide the scent of what this child used to be. The coconut trees are not high enough to see over the inside out that was made here. Bags do not have the honor of being called burial plots. Churches ain't supposed to be mausoleums. Tacloban was morphed into ground zero. And I watch this while it snows in Madison, Wisconsin, a place where it's easier to live as a rodent than it is to be a colored person. This place drowns my people in a different way. I inhabit both places like Jigsaw Corpse, trying to find itself whole. These brown boys in Tacloban aren't my cousins, but I want to carry them to safety. These brown girls in Tacloban aren't my daughters, but I want to tell them they're still growing after this choking, but I'm still an ocean away, a language farther from root, a skin tone lighter than the sand, born there, raised here, home nowhere. To watch this storm is a sorry excuse for mourning. It is to need the sun desperately. It is to realize that your body is in one country while your grief is in another. To look at your house, walk to a river, and come back to no house is to be Filipino. To look at your motherland hurting from a TV screen is to be Filipino American. To watch my islands through the blue eyes of Anderson Cooper is the most American I have ever felt, but I still cry for them, and I still pray for them because God tried to make them Atlantis before they were ready to be a myth just yet, because rebuilding is the Filipinos' most intrinsic muscle memory, but most painful trauma, because relief is just a word whose Tagalog translation I don't even know, because this poem is all I can give for my country, bleeding in salt water. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord keeps trying to drown us. Hallowed be thy bodies. Thy kingdom come down in waves and winds on earth as it is destroyed. Take us this day our daily rations, and forgive those who have tried to kill us as we forgive those who have tried to kill us. Holy Mary, Mother of God, Pray for us whose skin has always meant sin now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
Okay, 11 minutes before, the top of the hour here. Happy Friday, February 5. Need some good reading material for the weekend. We'll run out to your local bookstore, get a copy of Buyer's Remorse with a blurb on it that has made so much news, a blurb by Senator Bernie Sanders. The blurb heard round the world, as I call it in my column for today. Books available in your local bookstore at Amazon.com. And also, of course, if you would like a personal signed copy inscribed to you or to someone, in a friend or foe, go to our website, BillPressShow.com. Follow the link, and for $27, we will get the book out to you signed any way you want it. No questions asked. You tell us how you want it signed, and we'll get that out to you as a special service we're providing here. Just a couple of things. Well, before we get back to last night's debate, this is very interesting. The national polls, which kind of don't mean anything now because we don't have a national election. What really counts are the state-by-state polls. But the national, while Bernie Sanders was tied with Hillary in Iowa, and he has been double-digit points ahead in New Hampshire, Hillary has overwhelmed him in the national polls among Democrats, largely because she was very well known and very popular for a long time, and nobody knew. A lot of Democrats nationwide didn't know who the hell Bernie Sanders was. The latest poll is out today from CNN. This is the national. I just want to double check that it's CNN so I don't mislead you. No, it's Quinnipiac University poll, nationwide. Okay. December, just a month or so ago, right? Hillary Clinton still held a 61-30 lead over Bernie Sanders.
It's a big lead.
So everybody's saying, even among Democrats nationwide, it doesn't matter how popular Bernie may be in New Hampshire, nationwide, he can't cut it. Okay. Out today, the Quinnipiac University poll, the standing now nationwide among Democrats is Hillary Clinton 44, Bernie Sanders 42.
Oof.
That's astounding.
That's wild.
How that gap is narrowed. And of course, we saw the two of them on stage last night again. Well, for the first time, just the two of them side by side. No Martin O'Malley. Unlike the Republican debates where there were like 9 people on stage, just the two of them. Chuck Todd and Rachel Maddow did a great job. They just got out of the way and let the candidates tackle it. They'd throw an issue out and let the candidates take off on it. And it went in a lot of different directions. There were some flashpoints. One of them was when Bernie admitted, look, they asked Bernie about, well, what about Hillary's got all these endorsements? And Bernie said, hey, I admit that. She's the establishment candidate. She's got all the endorsements, which is true. Most of the big progressive organizations, senators, Democrats in the House and the Senate, have endorsed Hillary.
I mean, people were endorsing Hillary before she even got in the race.
Yeah. Hillary says, how dare you call me the establishment?
Senator Sanders is the only person who I think would characterize me, a woman running to be the first woman president, as exemplifying the establishment.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I thought that was a cheap shot to play the female card, if you will, saying, how can I be a woman and be part of this? Look, she is former First Lady of Arkansas, First Lady of the United States, U.S. Senator from New York, Secretary, presidential candidate already in 2008, and Secretary of State for 4 years. If that's not the establishment, I don't know what is. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with being that. That's who she is. So
got a lot of stuff done being the establishment.
And I thought throwing that female card out there, you know, I played dirtier than Bernie Sanders would. I would have said to her, hey, try being the first Jew to run for president. Mm-hmm. Okay? All right, Hillary, we'll make a deal with you. You don't play the female card, I won't play the Jew card. But, let's not pretend that you're anything other than you are. Bernie Sanders has been in Congress for 23 years, but he's clearly an outsider. He's a renegade. He's never been part of the establishment. And even now, it's not accepted by the establishment. She is. Again, nothing wrong with that. Just don't deny who you are. That was just one of the flashpoints last night. When we come back, my parting shot on things and where they stand today and the 2016 race. We'll be right back.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
For my 6th birthday, my grandpa gave me a Rubik's Cube. I'll always be able to remember its edges, hold it in my hands, heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I remember him telling me about it. How Rubik's Cube has 43 quintillion, 252 quadrillion, 3 trillion, 274 billion, 489,856,000 possibilities. He told me it can be really confusing sometimes. But to look at the center squares as a reminder of what color each side should be. Shift. We're celebrating his 50th wedding anniversary. He and Grandma are dancing a dance that only fragile legs and wrinkled hands know how to. That type of happiness took him 70 years to earn. The white side of the cube is solved. Shift. He tells me about how he met Grandma. His college friends had a sunset picnic. She was there, as beautiful as an unsolved puzzle. She was a red-headed scramble on an orange tile sky. Shift. The walls of the hospital are blue. The nurses explain that his memories had become jumbled. Strangers in family portraits, pictures with mismatched faces. Alzheimer's has made his mind into a Rubik's Cube. Shift. He's a highway patrolman. His car is white. No, it's blue. He worked there for 30 years. Some nights he still does. Time is a complicated algorithm. Shift. The pills he holds are yellow and red and green. The weight of their color causes his hand to drop. I try to shift his tiles back into place, but people don't have center squares. His mind is a hospital bed divided by 0. Shift. My sister's wedding is white, but he doesn't know why. Shift. World War II is every color. The South Pacific is blue. The islands are green. There is so much red. Shift. Grandpa, table, cube, name, scramble, California, guitar, grapefruit, highway, wedding bell, war, stick shift rifles, South Pacific mirrors, shift, 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 shift. The temperature of his hands is blue. Death is colorless. I will always remember his edges. Hold him in my hands, heft the weight of an overwhelming problem. I was unable to attend his funeral. I never found out the algorithm to solve him. A Rubik's Cube has over 43 quintillion possibilities. A casket only has one.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yep, have you heard there's a big battle going on between Hillary and Bernie over which one is the better progressive? Now, look, compared to what's going on between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, accusing each other of cheating, stealing, raping, whatever, what Hillary and Bernie are arguing about is really relatively harmless and pretty one-sided, too. Neither one's a perfect progressive. But I think, no doubt, Bernie comes out on top. He has a hard time explaining his vote against the Brady bill. She still has a hard time defending her vote for the Iraq war. In other words, she's a progressive, but not nearly as progressive as Bernie is. But here's what I got to say. I love this battle, and I'll tell you why. Because for years, we progressives have been fighting against the hardliners and the hawks and the dinos for the direction of the Democratic Party. And now think about it. The two leading Democrats are arguing about which one is the better progressive. In other words, fellow progressives, we have won. We're in charge now. I love it. And that's it for this week, folks. Have a great, great weekend. Come back and see us on Monday.
This is the Bill Press Show.